Throughout human history, objects have appeared that challenge everything we thought we knew about civilization, technology, and the passage of time. From stone spheres carved with uncanny precision in the jungles of Costa Rica to clay tablets etched with symbols that remain undeciphered after millennia, these artifacts defy explanation. Some seem to hint at advanced knowledge lost to history. Others suggest civilizations capable of feats long before their era. The artifacts you will encounter in this video defy explanation, whispering of knowledge long lost, secrets carefully hidden, and mysteries the centuries have struggled to conceal. The collection spans continents and centuries, uniting mystery and craftsmanship in ways that continue to baffle archaeologists, historians, and scientists alike. Step closer and prepare to uncover the stories that have eluded understanding for thousands of years. The Antikythera mechanism, the impossible machine of Greece. The waters off Antikythera are calm now, a quiet stretch of blue between Crete and the Peloponnesian coast. In 1900, those same waters revealed a wreck that would confound scholars for more than a century. A team of sponge divers, searching after a storm, discovered a Roman-era merchant vessel, its cargo scattered across the seabed, statues, amphorae, and other luxury goods destined for an elite patron in Rome. Among the debris, one diver noticed a lump of corroded bronze fused with rock. At first, it seemed unremarkable, just another fragment of ancient detritus, but within that encrusted mass lay a mechanism so intricate it would later be called the world's first computer. Brought to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, the fragments defied understanding. The shipwreck, dating to around the 1st century BCE, was typical of its time, yet these bronze pieces contained tiny, perfect teeth gears that no one could explain. In 1902, archaeologist Valerius Stace recognized their significance. Embedded within the corroded bronze were interlocking gear wheels, inscriptions, and a precision that seemed impossible for the era. The object, later named the Antikythera mechanism, would reveal a sophistication unseen in the ancient world. Early theories struggled to define its purpose. Some dismissed it as a navigational aid, a clock, or a calendar. The corrosion obscured much of its inner workings, and early X-ray imaging could not penetrate the encrusted layers. For decades, it remained an unsolved riddle, quietly stored in museum drawers, overshadowed by the more glamorous statues recovered from the same wreck. Interest revived in the 1950 seconds when Derek de Solla Price, a British science historian, began studying the fragment. Using early radiography to peer through the calcified layers, he discovered more than 30 interlocking bronze gears, arranged in a configuration rivaling a modern clock. The mechanism appeared designed to model the movements of celestial bodies with extraordinary accuracy. Price described it as a mechanical universe, a device so precise it challenged assumptions about the technological limits of the ancient world. Before the Antikythera mechanism, historians believed that complex gearing did not exist until medieval Europe. Yet here was an artifact, 2,000 years old, displaying advanced mechanical engineering, astronomical knowledge, and meticulous craftsmanship. Later imaging in the early 2000s revealed new details. The device had been enclosed in a wooden case roughly the size of a shoebox, with dials and inscriptions on both front and back. A hand crank would move the gears, allowing the user to simulate the motion of the sun, moon, and possibly planets. The inscriptions corresponded to lunar phases, eclipses, and even the timing of events like the ancient Olympic Games. The front dial marked the zodiac, while a smaller dial tracked the lunar cycle. The back featured 2 spiral dials, predicting solar and lunar eclipses with remarkable precision. Some fragments indicated a differential gear system that accounted for the moon's irregular orbit, a feature not seen again until the modern era. Each gear required precise cutting and alignment, suggesting that its makers possessed advanced knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and engineering. Yet no other examples from this period survive, leaving the mechanism as a lone testament to an otherwise vanished tradition. Scholars debate who could have built such a device. Some suggest a follower of Archimedes, known for mechanical ingenuity. Others point to Rhodes, a hub of scientific knowledge where astronomer Hipparchus studied lunar motion. The mechanism's accurate lunar calculations hint at his influence, but no inscriptions name a maker, and no contemporary texts describe such a device. It appears without precedent or successor, as if it emerged fully formed from the mind of an unknown genius. Its purpose is equally mysterious. Was it a teaching tool, a navigational instrument, or a temple device to track celestial cycles? Its portability suggests practical use, yet the level of craftsmanship implies immense value. Perhaps it represented a mechanical model of the cosmos, a tangible embodiment of the universe's order. Microscopic imaging has uncovered faint Greek inscriptions etched onto the surfaces, describing solar and lunar cycles and the intervals of eclipses. These texts suggest it functioned not only as a calculator, but also as a predictive instrument, foreseeing celestial events long before telescopes or modern mathematics existed. Despite these revelations, questions remain. How could such precise metalwork be achieved with ancient tools? Why have no other examples survived? Was this a unique masterpiece, or the last remnant of a lost tradition of mechanical science? The silence of history offers no answers. Today, the Antikythera mechanism rests behind glass in Athens, fragmented yet awe-inspiring. Replicas constructed with modern techniques reproduce its motion, but even those who build them cannot escape a sense of disbelief. The precision of its gears, the sophistication of its design, and the enigma of its origin combine to form one of archaeology's most haunting puzzles. The sea keeps what it understands, and the rest, like the mind behind that machine, remains forever unknown. The sea keeps what it understands, and the rest, like the mind behind that machine, remains forever unknown. The Piri Reis map, the map that shouldn't. In the cold light of winter 1929, a group of scholars, searching the shelves of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, unfolded a fragment of gazelle skin and found themselves staring at the impossible. The map, dated 1513 and signed by the Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis, displayed the known world in extraordinary detail, yet it also revealed coastlines that should not have been known to any cartographer of that time. There, on the southern edge, lay the unmistakable outline of Antarctica, drawn 3 centuries before its discovery, free of ice and aligned with uncanny accuracy to modern geological surveys. Across the vellum, delicate ink lines traced continents and oceans with precision that rivaled maps drawn centuries later. Names of strange lands, notes in Ottoman Turkish, and clusters of sea creatures decorated its borders like half-remembered myths. Scholars examining the artifact soon realized they were not merely looking at an early world map. They were confronting evidence of knowledge that should have been impossible for a 16th century navigator to possess. Beyond its beauty, the document's mystery rests in what it suggests. The Piri Reis map appears to incorporate information from far older sources charts that the admiral himself claimed were derived from the time of Alexander the Great. He wrote that he had compiled it using maps from Arabs, Portuguese, and the ancient ones. At first glance, the coast of South America appears where it should be, carefully annotated with names that match regions later confirmed by explorers. Yet further south, the land curves eastward, showing a stretch of coast that mirrors the Queen Maud Land of Antarctica beneath its current ice. When compared with seismic surveys of the continent's subglacial terrain, the resemblance becomes unnervingly precise. How could a 16th century map depict parts of the Antarctic coastline as though the ice had not yet formed? The last time that region was ice-free was estimated to be thousands of years ago. If true, the implication was staggering. Someone, long before recorded civilization, had charted those lands under conditions that modern humanity had never witnessed. Some historians suggest that Piri Reis simply misinterpreted the southern tip of South America, stretching it eastward in error. Others claim that distortions caused by the map's projection give the illusion of an Antarctic resemblance where none exists. There is also the matter of what the admiral himself believed. A skilled navigator and geographer, he served in the Ottoman fleet during a period of global discovery. His other works, including the detailed Kitab-u-Bahriyeh, or Book of Navigation, demonstrate meticulous scholarship and exacting craft. He cited his sources openly, and took pride in accuracy. His statement that he used maps dating from antiquity cannot easily be dismissed as poetic exaggeration. One fragment of his notes describes how he incorporated 8 maps of the ancient world, among them a map drawn in the time of Alexander the Great. None known to history contain such precise depictions of South America, Antarctica. Some theorists have gone further, suggesting the map may preserve remnants of a prehistoric maritime culture, one that explored the globe before the rise of Egypt or Sumer. As more details of the Piri race map surfaced, its implications spread far beyond the academic halls of Istanbul. Specialists noted its use of spherical trigonometry, an advanced understanding of Earth's curvature that few Renaissance mapmakers mastered. The possibility that it was based on even older, more accurate charts forced scientists to reconsider the scope of ancient knowledge. Every curve of its inked coastline seems to hold contradictions. The Caribbean islands appear in correct relation to one another, while parts of the Atlantic seem almost modern in their proportions. The level of accuracy in distance and latitude suggests access to advanced navigation methods, yet such instruments did not exist in 1513. To date, no surviving record explains how Piri Reis could have obtained such data. Over time, the map became more than a historical curiosity. It became a window into the unknown history of exploration. Some have speculated about forgotten civilizations that mapped the world in an age lost to cataclysm, perhaps echoing legends of Atlantis or other sunken cultures. Others insist the mystery lies not in lost technology, but in a fragment of knowledge preserved through centuries of copying, misunderstood but never entirely erased. The parchment itself offers no answers. Its edges are torn, the surviving portion only a fragment of a larger chart that may once have depicted the entire world. The missing sections leave open what else might have been recorded, perhaps more evidence of ancient coasts, now submerged and forgotten. In the silence of the archives, the gazelle skin relic endures, its faded ink still challenging every map that came after. Whatever its true origin, the Piri Reis map continues to unsettle those who study it. The further scholars probe into its details, the more it resists explanation. Its measurements defy the tools of its age. Its sources remain elusive. Its implications touch the very timeline of human discovery. The artifact remains suspended between history and myth, between what is known and what should have been impossible. In those fine lines of ink, the world whispers of a cartographer who glimpsed beyond his age. The London hammer, a modern tool in ancient stone. Beneath a shallow ridge outside London, Texas, a small group of explorers stumbled upon an object half buried in pale stone. The year was 1936, and the landscape stretched dry and quiet, its exposed cliffs layered with ancient sediment. They carried it home as a curiosity, unaware that what they had found would become one of the most puzzling objects in modern archaeology. At first, it seemed ordinary, a piece of rusted metal protruding from a limestone nodule. Yet its shape was unmistakable, a hammerhead with a handle still attached. The head was smooth, symmetrical, and strikingly modern, weighing just under a pound, its edges rounded as though shaped by skilled hands. The handle, partially turned to coal, appeared to be wood of ancient origin. When the rock was broken open, the truth of it defied explanation. The hammer lay sealed within, its head embedded in a mass of stone that geological analysis later dated to more than 100 million years old. The contradiction was immediate and undeniable. How could an artifact of human design be encased in material formed during the age of the dinosaurs? The find ignited both fascination and disbelief, drawing the attention of creationists, scientists, and skeptics alike, each seeking an answer that would align the object with their understanding of history. Laboratory testing only deepened the problem. The stone encasement displayed typical Cretaceous features, fossil shells, mineral inclusions, and layers consistent with immense geological age. Yet the hammer within was unmistakably modern in design, its metal showing no sign of ancient corrosion. Some researchers who examined it concluded that the hammer's surrounding stone had formed later, perhaps through a rapid concretion process, where minerals crystallized around the object over time. But the density and composition of the matrix did not fully support that explanation. The iron itself carried an impossible purity. Tests revealed that it was composed of 96% iron, 2.6% chlorine, and traces of sulfur and alloy unlike any produced in the modern industrial age. Even more puzzling, the metal showed no signs of rusting, despite its long exposure to air and moisture. Others argued the results were inconclusive, that contamination or testing error had led to false readings. The hammer's wooden handle, too, was inexplicably preserved, its outer layers partly coalified, its inner structure still fibrous, as though caught midway between life and fossilization. Geologists and skeptics offered simpler answers. They suggested that the hammer was indeed modern, likely dropped or discarded in the 19th century, and that the surrounding stone was not ancient rock, but a concretion, a build-up of minerals hardening around the object within a few decades. Such formations are known to occur under rare conditions, and the region's mineral-rich groundwater could have accelerated the process. But the concretion theory struggled to explain the detailed fossil shells fused within the surrounding matrix, nor why the hammer's surface appeared to have fused seamlessly with it, as though the two had grown together through deep time. Still, the object refuses to be ordinary. The grip is comfortable to hold, its weight even, its surface smooth from use. Whoever forged it had an understanding of metallurgy and form, not unlike that of a blacksmith or toolmaker from the early industrial period, yet the encasement tells a story of eras far older. To hold it is to feel an impossible collision of timelines, the modern hand pressing against a material record that predates humanity itself. For those drawn to the idea of lost civilizations, the London hammer became a symbol, a quiet defiance of linear history. It joined the ranks of so-called out-of-place artifacts, objects that challenge the boundaries of known chronology, metallic spheres in ancient strata, machined shapes in coal seams, or fossilized imprints of tools where no tools should exist. Yet this hammer persists, stubbornly resisting the comfort of a final answer. Even its chain of custody, though documented through the decades, has done little to dispel the unease surrounding it. For mainstream science, the explanation remains geological. Limestone can form rapidly under the right conditions, particularly in areas rich with carbonates and silicates. If a tool had been left near a mineral spring or limestone deposit, it could easily have become encased within a century. Time and chemistry can deceive the eye, turning a recent artifact into something that looks prehistoric. The hammer stands at the intersection of belief and evidence, its mystery balanced between geological possibility and the allure of forbidden history. Whether the result of misinterpretation, unknown natural forces, or something truly ancient, the London hammer remains an object out of place, out of time, and out of explanation. Within that ancient stone, the line between what was shaped by hand and what emerged from the earth itself fades, keeping a silence older than any tool that touched it. The Shroud of Turin, the image without a brushstroke. In the hush of the Turin Cathedral, the linen lies in silence, locked behind glass and dimly illuminated by the cathedral's golden lamps. The cloth stretches nearly 4 meters in length, its surface marked by a pale, spectral outline that seems to hover rather than rest upon the threads. Whether one sees a holy relic or an elaborate deception, the shroud exerts the same quiet gravity, drawing every gaze toward the faint shadow of a man imprinted upon its surface. The image upon it is faint, almost spectral. When seen from a distance, it barely registers against the aged linen, but under the careful light of study, the contours of a face emerge, eyes closed, hair flowing to the shoulders, the trace of wounds upon the wrists and brow. The closer scientists looked, the less they could explain. The image, they found, existed only on the outermost fibers, less than a fraction of a thousandth of a millimeter deep. Its color, the result of a change so subtle that no pigment or dye could be detected. Its story stretches across centuries of reverence and doubt. Historical traces suggest its first verified appearance in Liéry, France, around the mid-14th century, when a French knight named Geoffroy de Charny unveiled it in a small church. From there, the shroud's path wove through secrecy and fire damaged in 1532, saved by nuns who patched the holes, and later transferred to Turin, where it has remained ever since. That belief endured through wars, skepticism, and endless inspection. Its power never diminished by uncertainty. When modern instruments were finally allowed to examine it, the findings only deepened the strangeness. In 1898, when Secondo Pia captured the first photographic negative of the shroud, the result was nothing short of astonishing. The faint lines of the cloth reversed themselves on the plate, revealing a startlingly lifelike human face, an image so clear it seemed almost to look back at the viewer. What had appeared indistinct to the eye became vivid in monochrome, as though the true image had waited centuries for a technology capable of unveiling it. With time came sharper tools, and clearer eyes new imaging methods that changed how the linen revealed itself to science. In 1978, the Shroud of Turin Research Project, STURP, a team of American scientists was granted unprecedented access to the relic. Over 5 days, they conducted chemical, photographic, and spectroscopic tests, collecting data across every inch of its surface. Their conclusion was cautious yet remarkable. No pigments, paints, or dyes could explain the image. It behaved more like a shadow fixed into the fibers by an unknown energy, perhaps involving dehydration or radiation. Microscopic analysis revealed no paint, no dye, and no brushstroke. Scientists from multiple disciplines, chemistry, physics, and biology among them, took turns testing the fibers. Ultraviolet imaging showed no evidence of human artistry. Infrared analysis found no trace of applied colour. Instead, the discoloration was restricted to the surface fibrils, consistent with some unknown form of radiation or chemical reaction. Then came the carbon test of 1,988, a result that seemed to settle the matter until it didn't. The radiocarbon dating placed the linen between 1,260 and 1,390 AD, squarely within the medieval era. The verdict seemed conclusive. The shroud was a forgery. But within years, critics began to challenge the testing's reliability. The corner used for sampling, they argued, had been repaired centuries earlier after fire damage, its fibers contaminated with newer material. The supposed certainty dissolved back into mystery. Among the lesser-known anomalies are the faint impressions discovered through digital enhancement, ghostly markings of coins over the eyes and floral outlines near the figure's head. Yet their presence, whether real or coincidental, adds another layer to the debate, that the image may hold traces of burial practices far older than medieval Europe could have known. Each fragment of data seems to oscillate between revelation and illusion, feeding a mystery that grows sharper, not dimmer, with every attempt to define it. Centuries later, the debate remains suspended between microscope and altar. New analyses ranging from pollen identification to DNA sequencing have yielded contradictory insights. Some suggest origins in the Middle East, supported by traces of plants native to Jerusalem. Others maintain that the artifact belongs entirely to medieval Europe. And while skeptics view it as an unmatched feat of artistry, believers see in its unexplained image a trace of the divine, a flash of transformation no science can yet describe. Every test seems to reaffirm one fact alone: the Shroud of Turin resists definition. Under the low glow of the cathedral lamps, the face remains faded yet unyielding, a silence untouched by time or proof. The Voynich manuscript, a language from nowhere. Within the dim glass of the Beineck Library, a book waits in stillness. Its cover is plain, bound in soft vellum, the colour of bone, its pages thick and uneven, like skin stretched across centuries. Light glances off its surface, but the words beneath do not reveal themselves. Line after line of precise script, neat, looping, confident, fills the parchment with a language that no one has ever spoken. Its pages are filled with curves and symbols that belong to no known alphabet. There are no familiar roots, no linguistic anchors, only an alphabet of indecipherable characters, flowing as though obeying their own secret grammar. Drawings deepen rather than clarify the enigma. Women bathing in green pools connected by strange tubes. Impossible plants with roots splitting into geometric shapes. Astronomical diagrams, rendered in patterns that no chart can explain. The book does not read like a riddle to be solved. It reads like a world that never existed. When Wilfrid Voynich first laid eyes on it in 1912, he thought he had found a forgotten code of the Renaissance. He purchased it among a cache of manuscripts from an Italian Jesuit college and carried it to London, believing it might be the lost work of a great alchemist. A note tucked inside, written by a 17th century scholar, claimed the book once belonged to Emperor Rudolph II of Bohemia, who allegedly paid a fortune for it, thinking it the work of Roger Bacon. From that point, its trail dissolves into speculation. The more history one uncovers, the more the manuscript slips through the gaps between centuries, refusing to belong to any of them. Every attempt to read it has collapsed against the same wall of meaninglessness. Cryptographers who broke wartime ciphers, linguists who mapped forgotten tongues, and mathematicians seeking numerical order all faced the same silence. During World War II, British intelligence codebreakers pored over its pages and abandoned the task, noting its patterns were too regular for chance, too irregular for design. What appeared systematic defied every system known to the human mind. Under magnification, the script reveals rhythm without comprehension patterns that mimic language yet defy translation. Spacing suggests syntax. Recurring symbols hint at grammar, but meaning remains sealed. Each page follows linguistic rules while belonging to no linguistic family. Statistical analysis shows frequency distributions similar to real languages, yet every attempt to assign phonetic or semantic value collapses. The ink shows no hesitation, no correction. Whoever wrote it knew exactly what they were writing, even if no one else ever would. Some believe it hides a cipher, others see deliberate nonsense, an elaborate deception for forgotten patrons. Theories range from coded alchemical treatises and medical compendia to mnemonic devices for mystical rituals, or even a meaningless exercise designed to deceive a wealthy collector. One suggestion places it in the hands of medieval hoaxers, another in the grip of an unknown genius who invented an entire linguistic system for reasons lost to time. Some claim it was never meant for human eyes, but for something or someone who understood another order of communication entirely. In recent years, computers trained on every known language have traced its structure and found it eerily human, yet belonging to none. Algorithms detect grammar-like sequences and consistent linguistic entropy signs of genuine communication, but cannot locate meaning. Some fragments echo medieval Latin, others Slavic phonetics, but every resemblance dissolves under scrutiny. The manuscript seems to imitate the act of speech itself, producing the shape of knowledge without revealing its core. The manuscript's most haunting features lie in its illustrations, visions poised between the natural world and dream. Astronomical wheels intersect with pipes and roots, human figures emerge from plants, architecture and anatomy intertwine. Some pages suggest herbal medicine, others cosmic mapping, yet the combination forms no coherent discipline. Researchers have compared it to medical manuals, astrological guides, and secret alchemical diaries, but no parallel holds. The age of the parchment is known, the mind behind it is not. Scholars have traced its origins to northern Italy around 1420 through carbon dating, but even that certainty unravels under closer inspection. The handwriting suggests multiple authors, or one hand working in deliberate variation. The binding appears later than the ink. Marginal notes in Latin and German hint at later readers who, like those today, stared into its pages and left only brief, bewildered marks. No single field has been able to claim it. Linguists see language without meaning. Historians see an object without context. Cryptographers see code without cipher. It exists between categories, carved from the absence of understanding itself. For some, its power lies precisely in that refusal to be explained. The Voynich manuscript is not simply unreadable, it is unplaceable, an artifact that humbles every discipline that touches it. It forces the question of whether knowledge itself can have boundaries, whether meaning can exist without the mind to receive it. And somewhere, within its silent pages, meaning still sleeps, waiting for a voice that may never come. The Dendera light, a carved symbol or lost technology, rising from the desert plain of Upper Egypt, the Temple of Hathor stands as a monument to celestial devotion, its columns carved with faces and ceilings painted with stars and constellations whose meanings stretch back beyond memory. The air remains thick with centuries of ritual smoke, and though built during the later Ptolemaic period, Dendera preserves the language of an older world. It is not simply a temple, but a vault of encoded meaning, a cathedral of images carved for eternity. Deep within the temple's lower crypts, carved along narrow, silent walls, lies a scene unlike any other in Egyptian art. A procession of figures guarding an elongated bulb-shaped object, arms extended in reverence, a serpent uncoiling within it as though alive inside a transparent vessel, radiating across the stone. One carving resists simple explanation. Archaeologists classify it among ritual reliefs depicting the transfer of divine energy. Yet to the modern eye, it appears almost mechanical. The bulb resembles a lamp, its snake-like filament glowing inside a glass enclosure, connected to what some describe as a cable leading toward a box-like structure. The implication is both clear and controversial. Some claim the relief depicts electric light carved 2,000 years before electricity was known. Traditional Egyptologists offer another view, not technology, but theology. The bulb is interpreted as the womb of Nut, or the primeval lotus from which the first light emerged. The serpent, not a filament, but the god Harsomptus, rising from chaos. In this lens, the panel becomes a cosmic metaphor, a depiction of energy and birth rendered in sacred iconography. Yet a deeper pattern emerges in the fluid curves and repeated shapes across multiple panels, suggesting deliberate intention. Engineers examining photographs note striking resemblances to vacuum tubes or Crookes tubes, early devices that produced light with gas and electrodes. Their argument rests on the precision of the imagery: the flared base, cable-like stem, and serpent, resembling a plasma discharge, remarkable accuracy that evokes technological knowledge rather than myth. The placement of the carving reinforces its significance. Hidden in the temple's lower crypts, away from sunlight and casual eyes, the reliefs were accessible only to priests. Scholars suggest these spaces functioned as storage for ritual objects or initiatory chambers, where symbolic lessons were conveyed through light and darkness. Every line in such a setting carries weight, merging physical and spiritual realms in a design intended for secrecy and ceremony. Beyond academia, the relief has inspired fascination and speculation. Popular accounts frame it as evidence of lost technology, a civilization whose scientific understanding rivaled our own, with mid-20th century authors asserting that priests used these devices to illuminate temples without smoke or flame. Others link it to myths of divine power or extraterrestrial knowledge, blurring the line between archaeology and imagination. Egyptian scholars remain skeptical. No wires, lamps, or metal fragments have been found, and no texts mention electrical devices. Ptolemaic artisans had tools, chisels, pigments, and simple lamps, sufficient to create the relief. Yet even cautious observers concede the scene is strikingly unusual, too specific in its resemblance to objects that should not exist in its time to dismiss as a coincidence. The temple's context deepens the intrigue. Hathor, associated with music, fertility, and illumination, oversaw the sun's rebirth and hidden light. The astronomical ceiling, with stars, planets, and zodiacs in precise alignment, reflects a priesthood intimately familiar with celestial order. To them, light was sacred, a bridge between gods and mortals, and the reliefs may encode cosmology and divine energy in visual form. Over centuries, the Dendera crypts have been opened, closed, and rediscovered. 18th and 19th century travelers copied the images, spreading them through Europe and igniting scholarly debate. Modern imaging and 3D scans reveal faint inscriptions and subtle lines previously obscured by dust and candle soot, sharpening detail without clarifying meaning. The figures remain unchanged, their mystery intact despite centuries of observation. Even now, questions persist. Were the artists preserving sacred symbolism or something more tangible, knowledge inherited from an earlier, forgotten source. The precise geometry of the reliefs and the mythic language of their story blur the line between science and faith, leaving the carving suspended at a threshold where understanding falters and wonder begin. And in the dimness of that ancient chamber, one question continues to glow: whether the light on the wall was ever meant to be seen at all. The crystal skulls, perfection without tools. In a glass case under controlled light, the crystal skull seems almost alive. Its hollow eyes capture and scatter reflections, sending fractured beams across the walls, as though searching for something beyond the confines of the museum. Around it, the hum of temperature monitors and whispered footsteps only deepen the sense that this is not a relic meant for containment. Visitors linger in silence, uncertain whether they are observing a sculpture or being observed by it. Its surface is flawless, cut from a single block of quartz, so pure it refracts the world into fragments. Every contour, every tooth, every cavity is carved with a precision that seems to belong to the modern age, yet the skulls predate any known machinery capable of such work. Under light, the crystal captures both shadow and brilliance, holding them in impossible harmony. It is heavy in the hand, denser than glass, yet impossibly delicate in its details. The human skull, a universal symbol of mortality, becomes here something luminous and untouchable death, rendered eternal in stone. Stories of its origin reach back through the jungles of Mesoamerica, where explorers in the 19th and early 20th centuries claim to have unearthed them among the ruins of the Aztec and Maya, attributing them to priests, kings, and forgotten gods. Some spoke of 13 skulls scattered across the earth, each containing knowledge of the world's creation, to be reunited when humanity reached its final age, merging archaeology with myth as the tales spread. When the skulls began appearing in European collections, scholars could not agree on their age or purpose, as museums acquired them through dealers whose stories shifted with every retelling, and institutions such as the British Museum, the Musée du Quai Branly, and the Smithsonian tested and catalogued them, only to find that none of their findings aligned, leaving each skull both ancient and newly made, artifact and enigma. Under the microscope, the perfection becomes unsettling. Smooth planes show no sign of tool marks, edges glide with absolute symmetry, and every contour demonstrates a refinement that even today would demand diamond-tipped instruments and mechanical rotation, techniques unavailable to any known civilization before the industrial age. Yet here, quartz, one of the hardest minerals on Earth, has been rendered obedient and sculpted without fracture or flaw. Tests conducted decades apart have produced contradictions impossible to reconcile. Early studies using traditional methods placed the skulls in pre-Columbian times, suggesting they were genuine relics of Mesoamerican origin. Later, with the advent of electron microscopy, new examinations revealed rotary wheel marks, traces of modern carving techniques. The results provoked outrage among collectors and fascination among skeptics. Were they brilliant forgeries crafted in the 19th century to deceive an age hungry for lost wonders? Or were they restorations of older forms, recut and polished by later hands? The debate fractured the academic world. To the descendants of the Maya and Aztec worlds, the skull holds meaning untouched by Western doubt. Among some spiritual traditions, it represents not deception, but transformation, the passage between worlds, and the preservation of ancestral wisdom. Ceremonial replicas continue to be carved from quartz, obsidian, and jade, used in rituals that honor life through the symbol of death. For them, the skull's perfection is not a puzzle, but a truth, the idea that stone remembers, that it carries the resonance of those who shaped it. Its silence is not mystery, but reverence. The modern fascination, however, belongs to the realm of unease. Writers and theorists have connected the skulls to vanished technologies and pre-human knowledge, suggesting they are remnants of a civilization erased from record. Others, more cautious, point out that belief itself gives the skulls their power, that the human mind, faced with the impossible, constructs meaning to fill the void left by unanswered questions. Even stripped of myth, their existence defies simple dismissal. The techniques required to carve such precision from quartz remain difficult with advanced machinery, and attempts to replicate them often fail. Fractured blocks, cloudy surfaces, imperfect symmetry, leaving no craftsman, ancient or modern, able to match their combination of artistry and engineering, and ensuring they inhabit a realm beyond certainty. In laboratory light, under scanners and digital measurement, their surfaces remain mute. Carbon dating offers no help, quartz yields no organic trace, and the composition reveals nothing but purity, shaped into the likeness of its most mortal feature, reflecting humanity to itself, brilliant, fallible, obsessed with creation, and forever haunted by the mystery of its own image. And there, in the sterile quiet of their containment, the quartz faces shine perfect, impossible, and untouched by any tool humanity remembers. The Dropa stones, records of visitors from the stars. No photographs from the excavation survive, no verified reports were filed, and the names of those involved drift between languages and decades, yet the legend persists of circular stone discs found in a remote Chinese mountain range, marked with spiraling inscriptions that seem to tell of visitors from another world. The mystery exists less in what was discovered than in what has been erased, hovering between myth and forbidden record, as though the mountains themselves swallowed their own secret. Few outsiders have ever entered the high, wind-beaten valleys of the Bayan Kara Ula Mountains, where nomadic herders speak in dialects unknown to linguists, and the weather can shift from sunlight to snow in an hour. According to later accounts, a Chinese archaeological team embarked here in 1938 to investigate caves said to contain ancient burial sites chambers whose walls held small, frail skeletons with unnaturally large skulls. Fragments of the story claim that the team's leader, Chi Pute, found hundreds of flat stone discs beside the remains, each roughly a foot across, with a perfectly cut hole in the center and delicate grooves spiraling outward like a phonograph record. These grooves, containing tiny hieroglyph-like symbols visible only under magnification, were etched into a mixture of granite and cobalt, too hard to shape with primitive tools, yet unmistakably ancient, coated with the patina of great age. Each disc appeared identical, produced with precision far beyond what Neolithic artisans could achieve. Initially catalogued as ceremonial objects, the discs were linked to skeletal remains that defied classification: abnormally large skulls, narrow rib cages, frail limbs. Locals spoke of the caves as cursed, claiming them to be home to star people who had fallen from the heavens long before recorded history. In the early 1962, new claims emerged from Beijing. Dr. Tsum Nui allegedly re-examined several discs and announced that the inscriptions, once translated, formed a narrative describing beings called the Dropa, who had descended in a craft that crashed into the mountains. Stranded and unable to repair their vessel, they sought refuge in the caves, living among local tribes and feared as celestial intruders. The text, if it ever existed, spoke of survival, intermarriage, and eventual extinction. Those who searched for the original translations found only rumours. Tsum Nui's report never appeared in any recognised journal, and his name disappeared from university registries. Some claimed he fled China after suppression, others that he never existed, a fabrication grafted to lend the story the illusion of scholarship. Yet a handful of European researchers in the 1970 seconds claimed first-hand sight of the discs, describing them as old beyond measure and producing a faint metallic hum when struck, suggesting at least some had survived official disposal. Today, the Dropa stones remain divided between fact and fable. Chinese authorities deny the expedition ever occurred, the caves are unmapped, and no museum catalogue lists the artefacts. Yet the story resurfaces in obscure books and private archives, remarkably consistent in details. The number of discs, their spiral engravings, and the small skeletons with enlarged skulls. In a world where myths shift to survive, the Dropa story refuses to evolve. As if preserved by those who knew, it was not meant to be rewritten. Recent digital analyses comparing the Dropa stones to known ancient Chinese petroglyph discs found no match. The grooves were too intricate, the precision too great, and the material composition too unusual for any known prehistoric artifact. Some propose the legend originated as Cold War-era propaganda, others that it arose from a misinterpreted discovery lost amid political upheaval. Even skepticism cannot dissolve the tale entirely. Whether object, rumor, or forbidden file, something gave it birth, and that origin remains unaccounted for. The Bayan Kara Ula caves remain untouched. No verifiable expedition has reached them, and any path to their location has long vanished into the landscape. Local herders still tell of a forgotten people, smaller than any human they knew, speaking in music-like tones and carrying discs that shimmer in the moonlight. Perhaps these are echoes of an ancient tribe lost to memory, or fragments of something that arrived from elsewhere and could not return home. Hidden by time and stone, the spiral carvings await a witness the world may never provide. The Baghdad Battery, power from the ancient world. On a dusty shelf in a Baghdad museum, a small clay jar draws attention, not for beauty, but for enigma. Its surface is unadorned, coated only with the dull ochre of centuries. Yet its simplicity belies a complexity that has confounded historians and engineers alike. The jar is roughly 6 inches tall, unremarkable at first glance, yet the precision of its interior hints at purpose. Copper, iron, and bitumen combine in a way that suggests not decoration, but deliberate design. Unearthed in 1938 along the banks of the Tigris, it belonged to a collection of Parthian artifacts discovered near the ancient village of Kujut Rabu. Archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig first brought attention to the vessel decades later, noting that it was unlike any other ceramic container found in the region. Though the surrounding pottery was clearly utilitarian, this jar contained elements that suggested function rather than form. Scholars catalogued it alongside oil lamps and clay figurines, but its construction set it apart, drawing both intrigue and skepticism from the moment it was examined. Inside the vessel lay a copper cylinder surrounding an iron rod, sealed carefully with bitumen. The rod did not touch the copper directly, and the sealing material appeared to prevent both movement and corrosion. The arrangement was precise, almost mechanical, hinting at knowledge of material properties that would be remarkable for its time. The jar itself was robust, able to withstand burial and centuries of exposure without significant deformation. It was an artifact designed to endure, and yet its purpose remained invisible, locked within the simplicity of its shape and the subtlety of its materials. Researchers in the 20th century attempted to recreate its function, connecting it to wires and acids in controlled experiments. When electrolytes, such as vinegar or lemon juice, were introduced, the assembly produced a small but measurable voltage. The result, though modest by modern standards, suggested that the Parthians may have possessed some understanding of chemical energy. The jar, once inert in the hands of museum visitors, transformed under the scrutiny of scientific instruments into a device capable of producing electricity. The implications were both tantalizing and troubling. A civilization long considered primitive might have had access to knowledge thought impossible for its time. The results were inconclusive, small voltages measured, but no definitive purpose confirmed. Some scholars argued that the experiment itself imposed modern assumptions onto an artifact whose use had been entirely different. Perhaps it was a storage container for sacred scrolls, or a vessel for ritual liquids, its inner components mistaken for conductive elements. Others suggested it might have been part of a forgotten lamp, a chemical device meant to generate light or heat. Attempts to replicate the battery consistently yielded inconsistent results, reinforcing both fascination and doubt. Skeptics argue it was a simple storage container, or perhaps a ritual object mistaken for a battery. They point to the absence of wires, electrodes, or connecting devices in the excavation site, and note that no ancient texts describe its use. If it was indeed a source of electrical energy, it left no trace in the technological record, no innovation carried forward into subsequent cultures. Some historians have suggested the jars were part of a small-scale electroplating workshop where gold or silver could have been deposited onto objects. Traces of metal deposits on nearby artifacts hint at the possibility that the Parthians were experimenting with techniques that required controlled electrical currents. If this interpretation is correct, it implies a level of chemical and material knowledge far beyond what conventional records of the period indicate, suggesting that the jar was not a curiosity, but part of a functional technological process. Could the Parthians have used it to electroplate metals, preserving decoration or symbols on precious items? Was it a tool for experimentation, a glimpse of an unrecorded understanding of chemistry and electricity? Or does its structure merely reflect a coincidental assembly of materials, interpreted through modern imagination? Every angle considered opens another, revealing that the object's mystery is inseparable from the silence of the centuries. In laboratories across Europe and the United States, researchers have attempted to recreate the battery using replicas modelled on the original dimensions. These experiments produce small voltages, occasionally enough to electroplate thin layers of metal, yet the results remained inconsistent. Using natural acids and attempting to mimic ancient materials, scientists found that even minor deviations could render the device inert. The difficulty of replicating its function underscores the ingenuity, or perhaps the sheer mystery, of the original. The Baghdad battery, in its quiet resilience, asks more questions than it answers. Its copper cylinder remains uncorroded, the iron rod intact, the bitumen ceiling unbroken. Scholars continue to debate, to replicate, to theorize, yet the jar yields only small sparks under human effort and none under the weight of history. Its presence in the museum is a reminder that technological genius need not always leave a clear trail, and that the past may contain knowledge just beyond reach, glimpsed only in the stubborn endurance of clay, metal, and sealant. And long after the museum lights dim and visitors depart, the jar rests in silent patience, holding the memory of a spark that may never ignite. The Fuente Magna Bowl, Mesopotamian script in the Andes. No one could have guessed that a modest clay vessel might contain echoes from a distant civilization. Its curved form is simple, unassuming, yet the moment a careful eye traces the etched symbols along its rim, a sense of dislocation takes hold. The engravings are delicate, precise, and unlike anything known from the region. They spiral in patterns that seem purposeful, almost disciplined, hinting at a knowledge system far removed from the Andean cultures traditionally associated with the area. It is an object whose quiet presence belies the upheaval it could cause in our understanding of pre-Columbian history. Found near the shores of Lake Titicaca, it drew attention not for size or beauty, but for what appeared to be cuneiform script. The initial assessment categorized the bowl as ceremonial, a product of a local culture with no inkling of the puzzling inscriptions it bore. It was only when scholars compared the etchings to known writing systems that the anomaly became impossible to ignore. The symbols bore a striking resemblance to Sumerian cuneiform, thousands of miles from Mesopotamia and separated by centuries. The vessel is modest in form, yet the careful engravings suggest meticulous craftsmanship and intentional symbolism. The clay itself is finely worked, fired to a hardness that has preserved the inscriptions through the centuries. The grooves of the characters are shallow, yet precise, carved with a skill that seems impossible without a clear understanding of the shapes and meanings they encode. Scholars who first examined the markings were struck by their resemblance to ancient Sumerian writing. Attempts to decode them have yielded fragments of words, though full sentences remain elusive. Some argue the inscriptions are an imitation, a forgery intended to impress or mystify, but the depth of wear and the integration of the characters into the vessel's form argue otherwise. Linguists note that the lines and curves are consistent with early Mesopotamian conventions, with symbols representing numbers, objects, or abstract concepts. The question arises not merely of authenticity, but of how knowledge of a system thought confined to the Fertile Crescent could have found its way into the highlands of South America. Critics point to the bowl's unbroken provenance and the detailed documentation of the excavation, which predated popular awareness of Mesopotamian symbols in South America. Others highlight the difficulty of reproducing the inscriptions convincingly using local materials and techniques, noting that the grooves bear the subtle unevenness characteristic of human hands familiar with the script. The debate extends beyond academics, touching on broader questions of cultural diffusion, lost trade routes, and the possibility of undocumented migrations. If authentic, the bowl challenges conventional timelines, suggesting contact or knowledge across continents millennia before known exploration. It raises questions about the flow of ideas in the ancient world, hinting at connections between civilizations that historians have long considered isolated. Could a Mesopotamian trader, sailor, or scholar have crossed the Atlantic in the centuries before recorded transoceanic voyages? Or is the bowl the vestige of an unknown intermediary culture that carried knowledge from one hemisphere to another, leaving behind only cryptic artifacts? Adding to the mystery is the linguistic complexity. The symbols on the Fuente Magna bowl do not perfectly match any known Sumerian text. They are adapted, simplified in some areas, and exaggerated in others. Some researchers propose that this represents a hybrid script, an attempt to transcribe Mesopotamian symbols using local understanding and materials. Whatever the truth, the script stands as a record of knowledge that defies linear history, a puzzle that teases both curiosity and disbelief. Attempts to situate the bowl within the broader archaeological context have yielded few answers. No comparable artifacts with Old World inscriptions have been reliably documented in the Andes. The site near Lake Titicaca produced typical local pottery, tools, and ceremonial items, yet nothing matches the Fuente Magna bowl in purpose or design. Some scholars hypothesize that the bowl was an isolated gift or a treasured object carried by travelers, while others suggest that it is the last remnant of a forgotten interaction between distant peoples. Its isolation only heightens the enigma, making each hypothesis both tantalizing and tenuous. Modern analysis has employed chemical composition studies and microscopic examination, revealing that the clay and pigments are consistent with local sources, yet the craftsmanship reflects techniques more commonly associated with Mesopotamian pottery. No traces of modern interference have been detected, further bolstering the case for authenticity. Its presence is a whisper from the past, hinting at connections history has not fully recorded. The Fuente Magna bowl endures in a quiet display, drawing scholars and visitors alike to puzzle over its origins. Its cuneiform-like symbols, carved with care and preserved by time, remain resistant to interpretation, speaking in a language that bridges continents and centuries. The artifact stands as a testament to human ingenuity, curiosity, and perhaps the unseen pathways by which knowledge may have travelled long before written history accounted for such journeys. And in the hush of the museum, the Fuente Magna bowl continues to ask the question no one has yet answered: how did a fragment of Mesopotamian script find its way to the highlands of the Andes? The Longyou Caves, architecture without builders. Monolithic chambers stretch into darkness, carved with precision that seems impossible for the time. The walls are smooth, almost unnaturally even, while the ceilings bear grooves and markings that defy functional explanation. Each room is vast, sometimes large enough to hold dozens of people, yet the scale of the excavation is staggering. Tens of thousands of tons of stone removed without the aid of modern machinery. The air is heavy with the sense of human labour long vanished, leaving behind no trace of the hands that must have toiled here. Discovered in 1992 by local farmers, the caves were initially dismissed as natural formations. Only upon closer inspection did it become clear that the chambers were entirely man-made, their sharp angles, parallel walls, and patterned ceilings impossible to explain by erosion or geological processes. The initial reactions ranged from curiosity to disbelief, as photographs and measurements revealed spaces that stretched beyond comprehension, evoking questions about both scale and intent. Each room reveals walls polished to near perfection, with columns rising in exact symmetry and ceilings etched with patterns that defy practicality. The floors are level, the corners precise, and the symmetry throughout the complex suggests a deliberate architectural plan. There are channels carved into the stone, perhaps for drainage or ritual, yet their purpose remains speculative. The entire network of chambers seems to operate as a coherent system, each section connected to the others with hallways and passages whose purpose is equally enigmatic. No tool marks or records of construction have been found, leaving experts baffled by how such precision could be achieved. The stone itself is hard sandstone, difficult to carve with primitive tools, yet the surfaces are smoothed with a consistency that suggests advanced methods long forgotten. Archaeologists and engineers have examined the sites, attempting to reconstruct plausible techniques. But each theory encounters a wall of impossibility. Simple chiseling could not account for the scale, while more elaborate methods would require coordination, manpower, and knowledge unrecorded in any historical document. The caves offer no clues about labor, purpose, or the civilization that undertook such immense effort. Compared to other ancient stoneworks, the Longyou caves stand apart, not for decoration, but for the sheer scale of human labor, with no known explanation. Unlike the pyramids, which leave behind inscriptions, workers' villages, and records, these caves have no accompanying artifacts to illuminate their origins. There is no tool, no tablet, no surviving scroll that can link the labor to a known culture. The Longyou caves seem to belong to an entirely separate understanding of human capability. Theories range from lost dynasties to unknown civilizations, yet none provide conclusive evidence of builders, purpose, or method. Some propose that the caves were used for ritual, storage, or as shelters for elite figures, while others speculate on military or defensive functions. Alternative theories even suggest they could be the work of a forgotten civilization with technical knowledge erased by time. Every hypothesis is challenged by the absence of corroborating evidence, and every theory amplifies the central enigma. Labor on this scale should leave marks in history, yet none exist. Recent geological studies have revealed subtle erosion patterns that suggest the caves may have been submerged in water at some point, adding another layer of complexity to their history. Traces of mineral deposits on the walls indicate periods of flooding, which could have influenced both the preservation and the original construction of the chambers. The cave's design raises further questions about the intent behind their creation. Some corridors create echoes that carry sound far deeper than expected, suggesting an understanding of spatial resonance. The interior labyrinth suggests a cognitive planning that seems incongruous with the absence of any historical record. The more scholars study the caves, the more impossible they seem, as if the labor of countless hands has been deliberately erased from memory. Even the methods of modern exploration reveal their limits. Surveying teams use laser mapping, ground-penetrating radar, and 3D modeling to document the chambers, yet the images only deepen the sense of wonder. Photographs show vast rectangular rooms, uniform pillars, and walls, polished to a mirror-like sheen. Every investigation returns to the same silence, leaving the cave's origins suspended between human possibility and historical impossibility. In the echoing chambers, untouched by human memory, the Longyou caves remain a silent testament to labor that history has forgotten. The Nebra sky disk, the bronze map of the heavens, forged from bronze in the heart of the European Bronze Age, a disk bears golden symbols that map the heavens with astonishing precision. Circles, arcs, and clusters of dots form a pattern that is immediately recognizable to modern eyes, representations of the sun, the moon, and the Pleiades. Even without understanding its full purpose, the disk conveys a sense of knowledge and intentionality, an artifact created not merely for utility, but to capture the cosmos itself in human hands. Discovered atop the Mittelberg Hill in Germany, the disk was found among fragmented artifacts whose purpose remained obscure. It was only when the disk was carefully cleaned and studied that its significance became apparent. The precise arrangement of symbols, the careful selection of bronze, and the delicate application of gold suggested that the disk was more than decoration. Its context hinted at ritual significance, though exactly what form that ritual took or whom it served remains uncertain. Its surface is carefully inlaid with gold, depicting circles, arcs, and dots that trace patterns of the night sky. One prominent circle represents the full moon, while a crescent denotes its waning and waxing phases. A cluster of 7 dots unmistakably marks the Pleiades, a star cluster that has guided agricultural and religious calendars across cultures. Thin arcs, possibly representing solstices or horizons, intersect these celestial markers, suggesting that the disk could have functioned as an early astronomical calculator. Each element seems placed with deliberate intention, evidence that its creators had an intimate familiarity with the heavens. Astronomers and archaeologists alike were struck by the precision with which celestial bodies are represented. The positioning of the Pleiades, for example, aligns with the observed angle of the cluster above the horizon during certain times of the Bronze Age. The arcs that span the disk may have allowed users to track the movement of the sun or predict solstices. Such sophistication suggests that the disk's makers were not merely observing the night sky, but seeking to encode it, to understand patterns, and perhaps to use them for ceremonial or calendrical purposes. Its combination of art, science, and ritual defies easy classification. Although primarily decorative, microscopic wear on the disk's surface suggests it may have been rotated or aligned with the horizon, indicating a practical function. Scholars have observed faint scratches and traces of handling along the edges, indicating that the disk was likely not static. These marks imply interaction, perhaps in ceremonies or in tracking celestial events. This finding adds a new dimension to its mystery. The disk may have functioned as a tool for observation, a teaching device, or a portable astronomical instrument, yet no contemporary culture provides a clear precedent for such technology. Metallurgical analysis revealed a composition of bronze and tin consistent with Bronze Age techniques, while radiocarbon dating confirmed its age around 1600 BCE. The gold inlays were applied with careful precision, suggesting knowledge of alloying and adhesion that would have required both skill and experimentation. Yet no written record accompanies it. No instruction or annotation survives to explain how the disk was intended to be read or used. It is at once tangible and incomprehensible, an artifact whose full function is locked away by time. Theories abound. Some see it as a ritual object, others as a calendar or navigational tool, yet its exact function remains elusive. Some scholars propose that the disk was used to synchronize agricultural cycles with lunar and solar events, ensuring that planting and harvest occurred at optimal time. Others suggest that it served as a ceremonial guide for religious leaders, a symbol of cosmic authority connecting humans to the heavens. The Nebra sky disk invites speculation without offering resolution, leaving both experts and observers suspended between admiration and confusion. Further investigation revealed that the disk's design integrates both practical and symbolic elements. The sun and moon markers suggest awareness of celestial cycles, while the Pleiades and horizon arcs imply that observation of the night sky was deeply significant to its creators. Some researchers argue that it represents one of the earliest known attempts to create a portable map of the heavens, a tool that could transmit astronomical knowledge across generations. Yet how such a sophisticated understanding arose in a culture for which few records survive remains a puzzle, raising questions about the transmission of knowledge in prehistoric Europe. High-resolution imaging reveals the careful etching of each symbol and the alignment of arcs with astronomical phenomena, but none of these insights resolve the central question: why was it created? Its craftsmanship implies reverence, and its astronomical accuracy implies observation and calculation. Yet the absence of explanatory texts or contemporary analogues leaves the disk suspended in ambiguity. It bridges science, ritual, and art, yet eludes definitive interpretation. Even as Mittelberg's hills return to quiet, the Nebra sky disk preserves its mysteries, a celestial chart no human hand has fully decoded. The Saqqara bird, aerodynamics before flight. Carved from a single piece of wood, the Saqqara bird presents the impossible form of wings, shaped with careful precision. Yet the shape of its wings, tail, and body hints at knowledge of balance, lift, and flight, as if its maker had studied the air itself. Every curve and angle appears intentional, a miniature experiment in aerodynamics, crafted thousands of years before humans would take to the skies. Discovered within a burial chamber near Saqqara in 1898, the tiny model was initially catalogued as a mere toy or ceremonial object. Excavators noted its presence among other funerary items, including small pottery vessels, figurines, and amulets, yet its unusual shape set it apart. Only in the latter half of the 20th century did researchers begin to question its form and function, sparking a debate that would continue for generations. Its dimensions are modest, yet the angles of the wings and tail suggest an understanding of lift and balance. Unlike typical Egyptian carvings of birds, which are stylized and symbolic, this object exhibits proportions and symmetry consistent with aerodynamic principles. The tail is angled downward, the wings subtly curved, and the body streamlined, features that modern engineers recognize as essential for gliding flight. The bird's form is so precise that some researchers have proposed it could serve as a scale model of an experimental flying device, rather than a simple figurine. Microscopic examination of the wood reveals tool marks that suggest a level of precision uncommon for the period. The marks indicate the use of fine chisels and scraping techniques, possibly to refine the balance and contours of the wings and tail. This subtle evidence adds weight to the theory that the bird was not merely symbolic, but functioned as a model for observing flight dynamics, a tangible expression of early aeronautical understanding. Modern tests have demonstrated that, when thrown or mounted, the model could glide, raising questions about ancient experimentation with flight. Replicas constructed from similar wood and carved to the same dimensions have been tested in controlled conditions, showing that the object can maintain a steady trajectory for several meters. Its performance is limited, incapable of sustained flight, yet the fact that it can glide at all suggests a conceptual understanding of air currents and balance. These findings challenge assumptions about the scope of ancient knowledge, raising questions about whether the bird represents practical experimentation, a teaching model, or purely symbolic mimicry of birds in flight. Compared to contemporary artifacts, the Saqqara bird stands alone, a singular expression of potential knowledge long before powered flight. No other Egyptian object demonstrates the same consideration for aerodynamics, and no texts or inscriptions provide instructions for its use. The artifact occupies a liminal space between art and science, ritual and engineering. Its sophistication implies observation and thought beyond what is typically documented in Egyptian funerary culture, hinting at a curiosity about the natural world that transcends its context. It is as though the maker glimpsed principles of flight and translated them into wood, leaving behind only a silent, enigmatic model. Interpretations vary widely. Some view it as ritual symbolism, others as a playful model, and a few propose proto-aviation experiments. Yet none can be confirmed. Anthropologists note that birds held spiritual significance in Egyptian belief, often associated with the soul or deities, which could explain their inclusion in a tomb. Others suggest that children or apprentices may have crafted such models as toys or teaching aids. Yet the aerodynamic properties are too precise to be coincidental, leaving open the possibility that it was intended to explore principles of flight in a conceptual or experimental sense. Further examination reveals that the bird's wings and tail are not only shaped for glide, but balanced in a manner that indicates repeated testing. Tiny imperfections on the edges suggest handling or minor adjustments over time, as if the artifact were not static, but actively manipulated. This subtle evidence implies that ancient artisans may have been experimenting with motion, even if only at a conceptual level, challenging conventional ideas of what Bronze Age societies understood about physics. The artifact's survival in a tomb may indicate that such knowledge was esoteric, restricted, or considered dangerous enough to be concealed, preserved for reasons now lost to history. The bird's enigmatic form has inspired experimental reconstructions, some mounted on strings, others thrown by hand, yet the results remain consistent. The model can glide under ideal conditions, but it is not a flying machine in the modern sense. If the bird represents an early understanding of aerodynamics, how was this insight conceived without precedent or documentation? And if it was purely symbolic, why does its shape so closely mimic the principles necessary for gliding? These questions linger unanswered, suspended between the object's small, deliberate form and the vast scope of what it implies. Resting in silence, the miniature wooden bird holds its wings as if prepared to glide across a sky humans would not claim for millennia. The Coso artifact, a machine inside stone. Amid the arid expanse of California's desert, a small nodule rests, unremarkable to the untrained eye, yet hiding a secret within its crystalline walls. Its rough exterior blends seamlessly with the surrounding pebbles, sun-bleached sand, and fractured quartz veins, offering no clue to the mechanical complexity concealed within. For decades, it lay unnoticed, a mute witness to the passage of time, until careful examination revealed its impossible nature. Encased in stone, a machine preserved against the odds. Encased in quartz, the artifact contains a cylindrical metal core, threaded and coiled as if engineered for a purpose beyond simple ornamentation. The cylinder fits snugly within the hardened concretion, and small traces of copper wire spiral inside, hinting at electrical function or mechanical ingenuity. The surrounding stone has crystallized around the metal, forming a shell that has both protected and obscured its contents. It is an object that commands attention not by size or ornamentation, but by the paradox it embodies, a machine entombed in a medium that should have prevented its survival. Its corrosion and the surrounding mineralization have puzzled geologists, who struggle to reconcile the metal's preservation with the age suggested by the concretion. Laboratory tests show layers of oxidation and calcification consistent with centuries of chemical interaction, yet the internal mechanisms appear unaltered, as if frozen in a state of suspended animation. Attempts to date the surrounding material have produced conflicting results, leaving the artifact suspended between ancient and modern timeline. Every analysis deepens the paradox, a relic that appears simultaneously contemporary and impossibly old. Although studied extensively, the artifact's metallic composition reveals an alloy unfamiliar to both the local geology and known historical metallurgy. Laboratory tests indicate traces of aluminum and nickel combined in proportions not typical for naturally occurring ores in the region, nor consistent with common manufacturing techniques of the early 20th century. Such a mixture suggests deliberate alloying, raising questions about the technological knowledge required to create it. The precision of the threads and the consistency of the internal coil point to intentional design rather than accidental formation, further amplifying the puzzle of how and when the object could have been fabricated. Experiments to recreate the core and its encrustation have consistently failed, revealing craftsmanship that modern tools cannot easily replicate. Metallurgists and engineers have attempted to forge replicas of the cylinder and coil, subjecting them to chemical baths intended to simulate decades of oxidation and mineralization. None has produced the same uniform concretion without fracturing or distorting the metal. The artifact's preservation implies techniques or conditions unknown to contemporary science, as though the original maker possessed a mastery over both materials and time itself. Even the artifact's weight and balance defy expectation, suggesting a design optimized for functionality rather than mere ornamentation. When handled, the nodule feels unnaturally uniform, with the metal core contributing to a center of gravity that aligns precisely with the cylindrical shape. Engineers who have examined it note that the internal mass distribution implies purposeful engineering, possibly for rotation, vibration, or another mechanical function now lost to time. This subtle physical evidence supports the notion that the artifact was not a casual or decorative object, but rather a miniature device with a function that modern science cannot replicate or fully understand. The artifact's context offers no guidance. No nearby structures, tools, or artifacts suggest a culture capable of such work, leaving historians at an impasse. The desert landscape yields only natural rock formations, scattered fossils, and traces of mining activity that postdate the artifact's supposed age. Without surrounding evidence, the object exists as a singular anomaly, a testament to ingenuity whose origin cannot be traced. The dissonance between its sophistication and the environment that shelters it magnifies the sense of mystery, transforming a small nodule into a question that spans centuries. Theories abound, from natural formation over a modern object to relics of lost ancient technology, yet none resolve the contradiction between stone and machine. Skeptics propose that it is a modern spark plug, accidentally encased in mineral growth during the 20th century, yet the concretion's complexity and age defy such a simple explanation. Others suggest the artifact is a forgotten experiment from a pioneering inventor, lost to history and accidentally preserved. A more radical perspective considers the possibility of technology far ahead of its time, a fleeting glimpse of knowledge that ancient humans may have possessed but left unrecorded. Microscopic study of the quartz surrounding the core has revealed tiny striations and layering that suggest slow crystallization over decades or centuries. The pattern of mineral growth indicates consistent environmental conditions, reinforcing the impression that the artifact is much older than a modern object could be. This duality, a machine simultaneously ancient and perfectly preserved, heightens the enigma, suggesting that the Coso artifact exists in a temporal space that conventional science struggles to comprehend. And in the quiet desert, where time and sand have preserved it, the Coso artifact endures, a silent witness to a machine that refuses to be fully explained. The Ubaid lizard figurines, the reptilian people of prehistory. With elongated limbs and scaled features, the Ubaid lizard figurines present an uncanny fusion of human and reptile. Their small frames, rarely more than a few inches tall, convey a presence that belies their size. Each figure possesses a humanoid torso, yet the head, tail, and textured limbs evoke creatures that seem to crawl between worlds, part animal, part human, entirely enigmatic. The detailing is meticulous. The fingers and toes are articulated, the eyes set in deep sockets, and the tails curved in subtle arcs. Excavated from the fertile plains of southern Mesopotamia, they date back over 6,000 years amidst the early Ubaid settlements. Clay dwellings and simple temples form the backdrop of the era, but nothing in the surrounding architecture directly explains the existence of these hybrid figures. They appear both ordinary and impossible, their presence unanticipated in a culture often defined by practicality and early civic development. Each figure, carved from clay or stone, exhibits remarkable attention to anatomical detail, from articulated fingers to pronounced tails. Some show incised lines along the spine or limbs, possibly representing scales or musculature, while others retain traces of pigments that hint at painted embellishment. Such care in small-scale creation implies that these objects were not mere toys or casual trinkets. They were objects of intention, their forms carrying significance that modern understanding struggles to grasp. The artisans employed fine tools and firing techniques that suggest a sophisticated understanding of material properties and durability. The firing of clay to produce hardened, enduring forms indicates knowledge of heat management and the physical properties of minerals. Even today, replicating the finesse and resilience of these figurines requires considerable skill, highlighting a level of craftsmanship that elevates them beyond mere curiosity. Since the clay contains fine-grained sediments and organic temper, it differs markedly from the ordinary pottery of the Ubaid culture. Laboratory studies reveal that the clay was carefully processed to enhance durability and allow for intricate detail, suggesting that the figurines were crafted with intentionality far beyond ordinary domestic wares. Traces of plant fibers and mineral inclusions indicate that the creators understood how to manipulate the medium to prevent cracking during firing, an advanced technique for the era. Such attention to material properties implies that the figurines were valued objects, likely intended for ritual or ceremonial purposes rather than casual use. Interpretations of the figurines vary, with some scholars suggesting ritualistic purpose, others proposing mythic storytelling, and a few hinting at symbolic depictions of hybrid beings. The elongated heads and reptilian features may have represented spiritual intermediaries, deities, or ancestral entities, their appearance codifying concepts lost to written records. Others propose that they served as amulets or protective charms, designed to invoke a particular power or guard the household. Yet the absence of definitive inscriptions or consistent contextual evidence leaves these theories speculative, each explanation illuminating some aspects of the figurines, while leaving others in shadow. Some figurines display postures that suggest movement or interaction, as if frozen mid-gesture in a narrative unknown to modern observers. These dynamic forms challenge the notion of the figurines as static symbols, hinting at a more complex cultural context in which they may have represented actors within a story or participants in ceremonies. The combination of anatomical realism, scaled textures, and implied movement strengthens the impression that these small objects were crafted to embody living presence, a quality that continues to perplex archaeologists and anthropologists alike. Similar lizard-like motifs appear in distant cultures, from Anatolia to the Indus Valley, raising questions about prehistoric, iconographic transmission or shared archetypes. Could these similarities reflect a universal human impulse to blend human and animal characteristics in symbolic art? Or do they suggest contacts and exchanges between distant peoples earlier than current models allow? The figurines invite a comparative lens that stretches across continents and millennia, yet they resist definitive classification. Despite centuries of study, the meaning of the Ubaid lizard figurines remains elusive, resisting definitive explanation and provoking both wonder and skepticism. Are they representations of mythic beings, metaphors for abstract concepts, or remnants of a forgotten belief system? Each new insight, whether technical, stylistic, or contextual, seems to expand the mystery rather than resolve it, leaving scholars with fragments of understanding and a profound sense of uncertainty. Microscopic analysis has revealed traces of pigment and tiny incision marks consistent with deliberate decoration, suggesting that each figurine may have carried a narrative or symbolic function. Some figurines display patterns along their spines that resemble scales, while others bear geometric markings that may relate to ritual practice or cosmological symbolism. These subtle features, nearly imperceptible without magnification, indicate that the figurines were not static images but dynamic vessels of meaning, intended to convey something beyond the physical. Their creators imbued them with a complexity that continues to confound interpretation, as though the figures themselves are communicating in a language lost to time. And in the quiet remnants of Ubaid settlements, these small figures endure, silent witnesses to a worldview that refuses to be fully understood. The Sacsayhuaman walls, stones that fit like flesh. Massive stones rise from the Peruvian hills, their edges pressed together so tightly they appear to have grown from the earth itself. The walls wind along the ridges above Cusco, rising in a series of terraces that dominate the surrounding landscape. Each block seems to nestle against its neighbor, conforming to angles and curves with a precision that arrests the eye. Each block, some weighing over 100 tons, was shaped with a precision that seems impossible given the tools of the era. The stones, primarily limestone and andesite, were quarried miles away and transported along paths whose traces remain faint or lost. How the builders maneuvered these massive blocks with simple levers, ropes, and manpower continues to elude reconstruction. Despite countless experiments and modern simulations replicating the careful placement of such colossal stones without crushing, splitting, or destabilizing them remains beyond conventional engineering expectations. The granite surfaces bear subtle undulations and polish that suggest intimate knowledge of the stone's properties. Certain blocks have convex and concave curves that perfectly interlock with neighboring stones, forming joints so tight that even a knife blade cannot penetrate. Tiny hollows and ridges align with their counterparts on adjoining stones, distributing weight and pressure in ways that minimize stress. Analysis indicates a remarkable understanding of load distribution, as the walls have withstood earthquakes that routinely rattle the Andes. These features point to a sophisticated grasp of physics, yet the techniques the Urkos, Kilke, or Inca masons employed to achieve such precision remain a matter of speculation. Each stone seems custom carved to its final resting place, a process that would demand iterative adjustments and precise measurements. Regardless of method, the outcome is a wall whose contours mimic the undulations of flesh, a living architecture that conveys strength, resilience, and artistry simultaneously. Close examination of certain stones reveals subtle tool marks that suggest a combination of pounding, abrasion, and scraping rather than uniform chiseling. In some areas, faint grooves and depressions appear to have guided placement or allowed wedges to temporarily hold stones during alignment. Sacsayhuaman served not merely as a fortress but as a ceremonial center, its walls aligning with the terrain and celestial markers. The terraces overlook Cusco, the ancient Inca capital, and appear to follow both natural ridgelines and lines of astronomical significance, suggesting that the builders integrated practical and symbolic considerations. Rituals, festivals, and military demonstrations likely took place within its bounds, and the walls themselves may have embodied cosmic principles, reinforcing social and spiritual hierarchies. The convergence of function, symbolism, and aesthetic sophistication makes Sacsayhuaman more than stone. It becomes a narrative written in granite, a language whose syntax is locked in angles and curves. Speculation abounds. Did workers use primitive tools with unparalleled skill, or have we yet to uncover techniques that have vanished from history? Some historians argue that the walls could have been constructed with nothing more than stone hammers, ropes, and human labor, emphasizing ingenuity over technology. Others point to the near-impossible tolerances and seismic resilience as evidence that the builders possessed advanced methods, perhaps passed down through secretive guilds or inherited from earlier, forgotten civilizations. Even today, scholars and engineers can only marvel at the seamless joints, the stone's perfect curves, and the silent testimony of human ingenuity. Modern scanning techniques and 3D models have revealed a staggering consistency in angles, fits, and load distribution across the entire structure. Despite millennia of weathering, seismic activity, and human interference, the walls retain their integrity and precision. Excavations and studies continue to yield minor insights, yet no single explanation satisfies both the structural and historical dimensions of the puzzle. In Sacsayhuaman, the interplay between stone, landscape, and human will remain as intact and inscrutable as ever. Archaeological surveys show that some stones were carved to interlock in ways that dissipate seismic energy, a technique whose discovery seems prescient for a civilization long predating modern engineering. These interlocking patterns suggest foresight and experimentation, implying that builders anticipated forces that could compromise lesser constructions. Coupled with the careful selection of stone types and the shaping of each block to complement its neighbours, the walls present a holistic system of construction that blends material science, architecture, and environmental awareness into a single, cohesive design. Amidst the Andes, the walls endure immovable, precise, and forever whispering secrets that no hand has fully unraveled. The Roman dodecahedrons, purpose lost to time, small enough to fit in a hand yet geometrically perplexing, the dodecahedron invites curiosity at first touch. Its 12 pentagonal faces converge in a form that is at once simple and bewildering, each side pierced by a circular hole whose diameter varies subtly from its neighbours. In a time of elaborate ornamentation and monumental architecture, the dodecahedron's understated perfection is both intimate and enigmatic, a puzzle reduced to handheld proportions, yet scaled to intrigue generations of scholars. Each of its 12 faces is pierced by a circular hole, the diameters carefully measured, often differing by mere millimeters. The edges between faces are crisp, the angles precise, forming a polyhedral structure that mathematicians and artisans alike would find exacting. The variability and precision imply intentional design rather than randomness, hinting at a purpose rooted in measurement, ritual, or player purpose that has eluded conclusive interpretation. Cast in bronze, the surfaces retain faint traces of polishing and evidence of careful finishing. Microscopic examination reveals small hammer marks, casting seams, and polishing strokes, indicating that these objects were not mass-produced by casual artisans, but carefully fabricated by skilled hands. The alloy, primarily copper, with varying amounts of tin, suggests Roman metallurgical knowledge, sufficient to produce a durable yet workable tool. The combination of technical skill, geometric awareness, and aesthetic restraint speaks to a culture capable of conceptual abstraction, yet the practical application of these objects remains an unsolved riddle. The patterns of oxidation suggest that some dodecahedrons were exposed to moisture intermittently, while others appear to have been kept in dry, sheltered spaces. Certain residues inside the holes indicate contact with organic material, possibly wax, thread, or plant fibers, lending credence to theories that they had functional or ceremonial uses rather than serving purely decorative purposes. This chemical evidence provides a tangible connection between the artifact's design and its historical application, though the interpretation remains uncertain. Found from Gaul to Pannonia, these artifacts are frequently discovered in locations distant from urban or military centers. Their distribution is irregular, sometimes appearing in domestic contexts, other times in isolated rural areas, and occasionally in sites associated with ceremonial or cultic activity. This dispersal complicates attempts to assign a definitive function, as objects found in differing environments may have served entirely separate purposes. The geographic spread, coupled with the scarcity of written records referencing them, emphasizes how deeply their original context has been lost to time. Speculation about their function ranges widely, with no single theory commanding universal acceptance. Some scholars propose that they were tools for measuring distances or calibrating instruments, while others argue for their use in textile work as aids in knitting or weaving, though direct evidence remains absent. Some have suggested they were dice or gaming devices, their hollow forms and variable hole sizes producing unpredictable outcomes. Some suggest they measured distances or sizes, while others see tools for knitting, ritual, or games. Others have focused on the astronomical implications, noting that some dodecahedrons correspond roughly to seasonal angles or star positions when held in certain orientations. The multiplicity of plausible uses underscores a broader truth. The Romans produced objects whose design communicates intent, yet whose exact meaning has slipped beyond comprehension. Intriguingly, some dodecahedrons display subtle variations in size and hole diameter that suggest a modular or scalable system. These differences may indicate that the objects were intended to work in series or as part of a set, possibly to measure distances, calibrate instruments, or perform comparative tasks. Archaeologists have speculated that each size corresponded to specific measurements or symbolic values, allowing users to select the appropriate dodecahedron for a given task. This pattern hints at a more complex purpose than any single theory alone can explain, pointing to a sophistication in Roman design and conceptual thought that has yet to be fully understood. They embody the Roman ability to translate abstract geometric concepts into tangible forms, and in doing so, challenge modern assumptions about the limitations of ancient technology. Each dodecahedron, though small, encapsulates knowledge of shape, proportion, and perhaps measurement, crystallized in bronze and enduring beyond the society that created it. Theories proliferate, yet none fully satisfy the lingering questions. Could they have served multiple functions depending on context, their purpose shifting between domestic, ceremonial, and practical? The absence of inscriptions, paired with the sheer uniformity of their geometric construction, implies a shared knowledge or a standardized production method now lost. Each surviving dodecahedron silently attests to a knowledge system that cannot be recovered, a fusion of mathematics, metalwork, and practical application preserved only in bronze. In museums and private collections alike, these small bronze enigmas remain silent, their true purpose lost to time. The Ica stones, engravings of an impossible history. Chronology falters, in the presence of a simple stone etched with impossible scenes. Spread across the Peruvian landscape, these smooth, oval rocks bear images that seem to defy every principle of history and natural science. Dinosaurs stride alongside humans, surgeons perform complex procedures with precision instruments, and figures manipulate technologies that appear far beyond the knowledge of pre-Columbian civilizations. Figures perform surgeries, manipulate machinery, and interact with creatures extinct for millions of years. Other stones depict humans riding creatures with long tails, or examining skeletal remains with instruments that resemble modern calipers. These engravings are not abstract symbols, but narratives frozen in stone, offering a window into a history that, if literal, would rewrite every accepted timeline. Each engraving presents a tension between what history tells us and what the stones depict. Scholars and observers alike find themselves suspended between disbelief and fascination. Conventional archaeology cannot reconcile humans with dinosaurs, nor explain advanced medical procedures in a period supposedly lacking the requisite knowledge. The stones, in their quiet insistence, force a confrontation with the limits of accepted understanding. The basalt surfaces are worn yet etched with lines so precise they suggest careful craftsmanship. Microscopists, examining the grooves, have noted the subtle consistency in depth and width, hinting at deliberate technique rather than random scratching. The very effort invested in these images underscores the seriousness of their intent, whether documentary, ceremonial, or symbolic. The Ica stones first entered public awareness in the mid-20th century when Peruvian physician Javier Cabrera brought hundreds of specimens to the attention of archaeologists and the general public. Cabrera claimed that the stones represented a forgotten, prehistoric civilization, recording knowledge lost to time. Despite skepticism, Cabrera amassed a collection exceeding 1,000 pieces, each one inviting viewers to question the boundaries of human history. Scientists and historians have debated these objects since they first entered the public eye, oscillating between fascination and dismissal. Skeptics quickly suggested a hoax, pointing to the lack of excavation records, market-driven distribution, and Cabrera's own involvement. Experiments have demonstrated that similar engravings can be produced with modern tools in short periods, lending credence to accusations of fabrication. Yet even staunch skeptics acknowledge that some stones exhibit wear patterns, mineral deposition, and environmental aging inconsistent with recent carving. The debate lingers, with authenticity neither fully confirmed nor definitively disproven. Beyond questions of authenticity, the stones reveal the human desire to reconcile impossibility with understanding. Each depiction challenges conventional narratives, inviting viewers to consider alternative histories, lost knowledge, or symbolic representations encoded in stone. Dinosaurs and humans sharing the same world, humans performing complex surgeries centuries before such techniques were documented, or flying devices that resemble modern aircraft. All these images force confrontation with the unexpected. Whether ancient vision or modern fabrication, the Ica stones exemplify the intersection of human curiosity, myth-making, and the yearning to perceive continuity in the enigmatic past. Collectors and enthusiasts perpetuate the stones' legacy, treating them as puzzles whose answers may never come. Private collections, small museums, and traveling exhibits showcase the stones, drawing scholars, tourists, and conspiracy theorists alike. The stones' allure persists, fueled by their narrative power and the tantalizing possibility that they hint at knowledge long erased from the historical record. Provoking thought on the relationship between evidence and belief, the engravings challenge assumptions about what can be known. If taken literally, they demand a rewriting of human history. If symbolic, they suggest a sophisticated imagination capable of complex storytelling. Others argue that even if produced in modern times, the enduring fascination of these stones reflects a psychological need to question and reinterpret the past, to challenge authority, and to imagine what might exist beyond the written record. Displaying repeated motifs and patterns, some stones hint at a shared visual language or common symbolic system. These patterns imply intention, communication, and possibly a form of codified knowledge. Whether designed to record history, impart lessons, or inspire awe, the consistency of these motifs underscores the deliberate care behind the stones and raises further questions about the civilization or imagination that produced them. Even the most hardened skeptics cannot deny the power of the Ica stones to provoke wonder. Their images linger in memory, challenging observers to reconcile observation with accepted knowledge. Scholars continue to investigate, comparing the stones to known archaeological contexts, examining mineral residues, and attempting to place them within broader historical narratives. Yet for every hypothesis proposed, contradictions remain, leaving the stones suspended between possible prehistoric insight and modern fabrication, reality, and fantasy. And the Ica stones endure, silent witnesses to histories that may never align with our accepted past. The Costa Rican stone spheres, the perfection beneath the jungle. In the dense lowlands of Costa Rica, where the rainforest stretches in endless green waves and the air is thick with humidity, hundreds of stone spheres lie scattered across the landscape, quietly resisting explanation. Their surfaces, smooth and nearly flawless, catch the sunlight in ways that seem deliberate, as if each sphere had been polished to reflect a hidden order. Scholars first took notice of these formations in the early 20th century, but even after decades of study, the origins of the spheres remain as enigmatic as the jungle that conceals them. The spheres vary widely in size, from as small as a grapefruit to over 2 meters in diameter. Some weigh several tons, yet they are uniformly spherical with remarkable precision, showing minimal surface irregularity. This level of craftsmanship is striking, considering that the material, primarily granodiorite, would have required sophisticated techniques to shape and polish without modern tools. Originating with the Dickies culture, flourishing between 700 and 1530 CE, the spheres reveal the artistic legacy of southern Costa Rica. Excavations near the spheres have uncovered remnants of villages, ceremonial sites, and artifacts that hint at ritualistic practices, but none explain the technical knowledge required to carve and polish stones of such size with such accuracy. Some spheres are found in groups of 3 or 4, aligned along invisible axes, prompting speculation about astronomical or calendrical purposes. The process by which the Dickies people might have moved the massive stones adds another layer of mystery. Some spheres weigh more than 16 tons, far beyond what a small community could transport with simple levers or ropes. Modern experiments have shown that moving such weights across uneven jungle terrain requires careful planning, sophisticated coordination, and a clear understanding of leverage. Yet there is no record of roads, sledges, or mechanisms capable of facilitating this work. Observations of the sphere's surfaces reveal a surprising consistency. Some show evidence of polishing that indicates deliberate abrasion, likely with sand or finer stones, to remove imperfections. A few display faint carvings or lines, though erosion has obscured most details. Modern geologists attempting to recreate the sphere's shapes using ancient techniques have achieved only approximations, reinforcing the impression that their creators possess skills that surpass what is normally attributed to pre-Columbian technology in the region. Beyond their technical execution, the spheres evoke a sense of deliberate placement. Some lie in clusters, suggesting territorial markers or ceremonial boundaries, while others seem positioned to align with specific landscape features such as river mouths, hilltops, or natural depressions. Some clusters appear almost mathematical in arrangement, yet they resist definitive interpretation. Drawing interest from scholars beyond traditional archaeology, the spheres continue to challenge conventional interpretation. Anthropologists, astronomers, and even mathematicians have examined the formations for hidden codes or relationships. Proposals range from astronomical alignments to representations of cosmological concepts, yet none have produced conclusive evidence. The spheres are enigmatic not only because of the labor and skill required to produce them, but also because they seem to convey a message that has been entirely lost. Field studies reveal that the spheres were often buried or partially covered by sediment when first discovered, suggesting that their original placement may have been altered over time. Some were removed during agricultural development, while others remain untouched in remote locations. The dispersal and occasional displacement complicate efforts to reconstruct their original context. Each sphere, though worn in places, maintains a striking balance of form and proportion, as though untouched by the chaos of nature or human activity. Local folklore adds another layer to the mystery. Stories speak of the spheres as sacred objects, imbued with spiritual significance or the power to influence weather and fertility. Contemporary visitors often describe an uncanny feeling when standing among them, a sense that the spheres are more than inert stones. The emotional response they evoke is universal, transcending time, geography, and culture, and it reinforces the impression that they were created with intent beyond the mundane. Defying explanation despite extensive study, the Costa Rican stone spheres continue to intrigue scholars. They represent a convergence of artistry, engineering, and mystery that challenges the boundaries of what is assumed possible for pre-Columbian societies. Modern technology allows precise measurement and analysis, yet each discovery seems to deepen the puzzle rather than resolve it. The spheres remain a testament to human ingenuity, or perhaps to knowledge now lost, hiding beneath the relentless growth of the jungle and the passage of centuries. As the rainforest shadows lengthen across the cleared fields of Diquís, the spheres stand in silent testimony to a vanished intelligence, their perfection undimmed, their purpose unresolved, and their origins still a riddle that time refuses to yield. The London Crystal Lens, ancient optics from Nimrud. Excavations at Nimrud in northern Iraq, once the thriving heart of the Assyrian Empire, revealed a collection of artifacts that promised insight into the civilization's sophistication. Among them, a small, seemingly unremarkable piece of clear quartz drew particular attention. The lens had been overlooked during earlier digs, catalogued with other stone fragments, until careful examination revealed a curvature and smoothness inconsistent with mere decoration. Crafted from a single piece of rock crystal, the lens measures approximately 5 centimeters across, slightly convex on one side and flat on the other. Its surfaces are polished with such meticulous care that they refract light cleanly, producing a focused image when examined under proper conditions. The level of skill required to achieve this degree of optical clarity challenges conventional assumptions about ancient stoneworking techniques. The lens appears as if it were intentionally engineered to manipulate light, an object that hints at understanding optics centuries ahead of documented history. Measurements of the crystal reveal optical properties that are astonishing in their precision. When held at the correct distance from an object, the lens magnifies details significantly, with minimal distortion. Light passing through it produces sharp images, suggesting that whoever created it knew focal length and curvature, concepts formerly described only in much later periods. Laboratory tests have confirmed that the crystal could have functioned as a magnifying tool or even as a primitive optical instrument, yet there is no record of Assyrian texts describing such use. The lens's effectiveness implies deliberate experimentation and understanding of light that seems almost anachronistic. Findings from the excavation site offer clues but deepen the mystery. The lens was found in a cache of objects thought to belong to a royal or scholarly collection, alongside engraved ivories, cylinder seals, and fragments of ornate jewellery. However, there is no contextual evidence of complementary tools or writings that would indicate its intended function. Scholars note that while Assyria was technologically advanced for its time, no other artifacts from the period exhibit comparable optical sophistication. The lens stands alone, an isolated testament to a knowledge that has otherwise vanished. Experiments with replicas have attempted to determine the original purpose of the lens. Craftsmen using stone and copper tools approximated the curvature and polish, but none could fully replicate the clarity achieved by the ancient crystal. Tests in controlled lighting conditions have demonstrated its ability to concentrate sunlight to a point, suggesting potential uses ranging from fire starting to rudimentary magnification. Others have considered whether it could have aided in detailed engraving or inspection of small objects. Speculation about its role extends into broader debates about ancient technology. Some researchers propose that the lens was primarily symbolic, a representation of insight or divine vision, rather than a practical instrument. Others argue that it reflects a sophisticated understanding of optical principles that has been lost, evidence that Assyrian artisans and scholars possessed knowledge not recorded elsewhere. Comparisons to later optical devices in Greek, Roman, and medieval cultures highlight the anachronism, suggesting either independent invention or the inheritance of an earlier tradition now erased from the historical record. Each theory raises further questions about the transmission and disappearance of technological knowledge in antiquity. The lens has also inspired discussions beyond strictly archaeological circles. The clarity of the quartz and its precise shaping speak of deliberate intention, a careful, patient manipulation of material to achieve a functional and aesthetic goal. It sits as both a practical object and a philosophical puzzle, questioning what is known and what is assumed about ancient intelligence. Legacy is perhaps the most enduring quality of the lens. Today, it resides in a museum in London, catalogued as an artifact of uncertain purpose but extraordinary craftsmanship. Scholars continue to examine it with ever more precise instruments, seeking microscopic clues to its manufacture and use. Each new analysis confirms its optical capabilities and deepens the sense of wonder surrounding its origin. For visitors and researchers alike, the lens embodies a tangible connection to the past, yet it is a past that refuses to yield all its secrets. The artifact speaks silently across centuries, challenging modern understanding while preserving its enigmatic authority. The lens endures as a silent witness to knowledge long lost, its true purpose veiled across centuries of mystery. The Cocknow Stone, cosmic engravings from Scotland. Buried beneath turf for centuries, the Cocknow Stone lay hidden in a valley near Clydebank, Scotland, its vast surface obscured until its rediscovery in the 19th century. Initial reports by local antiquarians described a massive slab, roughly 5 meters long and 4 meters wide, etched with intricate designs that seemed both deliberate and enigmatic. Scholars and visitors who first glimpsed the carvings were struck by the density and complexity of the patterns, which stretched across every available surface of the stone. Etched into the granitic surface are hundreds of motifs, including concentric circles, spirals, cup marks, and interlocking lines. Some carvings are deep and sharply defined, others shallow and subtle, as if some sections were meant to catch the light differently. The sheer volume and precision of the carvings suggest careful planning and an intimate knowledge of geometry. Spirals ripple across the stone, sometimes nested within circles, forming patterns that hint at symbolic meaning. The surface seems to pulse with movement under shifting sunlight, creating a subtle optical effect that lends the stone an uncanny presence. Exhibiting centuries of weathering, the Cocknow Stone, carved from a single slab of local granite, retains its intricate designs. The stone's durability suggests the carvers intentionally selected material resistant to erosion, ensuring that their work would endure through generations. Patterns across the Cocknow Stone have drawn comparisons to cosmic diagrams and astronomical charts. Some researchers propose that the cup and ring marks correspond to stars, constellations, or lunar cycles. Others argue that they encode calendrical information, tracking seasonal changes vital to Bronze Age communities. The repetitive motifs suggest a symbolic language, a form of communication whose meaning has been lost, yet their intentional arrangement implies that the stone functioned as more than mere decoration. Contextually, the Cocknow Stone sits amid evidence of Bronze Age habitation, including burial cairns, standing stones, and remnants of small settlements. The stone's proximity to these sites has led archaeologists to speculate on ceremonial purposes, perhaps as a locus for ritual activity or as a marker of social or spiritual significance. Unlike domestic artifacts, the stone was clearly not utilitarian. It commands attention and invites observation, suggesting that those who carved it sought to convey a message across time rather than fulfill an immediate practical need. Nearby petroglyph sites hint at a broader cultural network in which the Cockno stone may have played a central role. Similar cup and ring markings are scattered across western Scotland, suggesting shared symbolic or ritual traditions over a wide area. These regional connections invite speculation about communication, migration, or cultural exchange among Bronze Age communities previously thought to be isolated. Analyses of the stone have produced a variety of interpretations, often conflicting. Some archaeologists emphasize its connection to prehistoric ritual landscapes, proposing that the carvings represent cosmological or mythological narratives. Astronomers and mathematicians, meanwhile, note alignments and geometric relationships that could reflect early observational knowledge of celestial patterns. Others caution against overinterpretation, suggesting that the markings may have been largely symbolic or aesthetic, their meaning now irretrievably lost. Surveys conducted in the 20th and 21st centuries have employed modern technologies to document and preserve the Cockno stone. Before it was reburied for protection, laser scanning captured high-resolution images, revealing subtle patterns invisible to the naked eye. Digital mapping has allowed researchers to study the relationships between motifs and explore potential astronomical or mathematical significance. These efforts have confirmed the technical skill involved in carving the stone and have highlighted the intentionality of every mark, yet they have also underscored the limits of interpretation. Enigma surrounds not only the carvings themselves, but also their broader implications. The Cockno stone challenges assumptions about the cognitive and artistic capabilities of Bronze Age societies in Scotland. Its complexity suggests a level of symbolic sophistication rarely attributed to prehistoric communities in the region. The stone may represent a fusion of ritual, astronomical observation, and social communication. Yet without corroborating evidence, any assertion remains speculative. The Cockno stone endures not as a record of events, but as a riddle etched in stone, offering a glimpse of a worldview that modern understanding cannot fully grasp. Each motif, each line and curve, hints at patterns and connections just beyond reach, leaving observers to ponder the intentions of hands long vanished. The stone's silent testimony bridges millennia, whispering of knowledge and ritual that time has carefully obscured. Etched deep into the ground, the Cockno stone presents a cosmic riddle, one that continues to utterly elude interpretation. The Dorchester coin, metal inscribed before known civilizations. An enigma in metal rests quietly in a museum display, barely larger than a thumbprint, yet carrying a weight of mystery that far exceeds its size. Its surface bears intricate inscriptions that, according to every known chronology, should not exist at the time it was forged. Scholars who first studied it were struck not only by its craftsmanship, but by the impossibility of its provenance. A craftsmanship bordering on meticulous artistry is displayed by the coin, forged from a metal blend uncommon for its region and period. The symbols themselves are neither fully alphabetic nor pictorial. They occupy a liminal space between writing and abstract design, a hybrid form that challenges modern understanding of early human communication. The coin's meticulous details, visible only under close examination, hint at sophisticated techniques and tools that appear anachronistic for its period. Tiny, deliberate grooves indicate controlled hammering and careful smoothing, while the depth and consistency of the inscriptions imply repeated testing and refinement. This attention to minute detail hints at a sophisticated understanding of metallurgy, challenging assumptions about the technological capabilities of the society that produced it. Confirming authenticity and age through analysis of metal composition and surface patina, the study only intensified the artifact's enigma. Scientific testing places the coin several centuries earlier than the nearest known examples of similar metalwork, a chronological gap that has no ready explanation. Isotopic studies of the metal suggest local ore sources, yet the techniques used to alloy and inscribe it resembled practices thought to have emerged much later. Even the wear patterns indicate that the coin was in circulation, suggesting it functioned as currency or a medium of exchange, despite being centuries ahead of its time. Comparison with other artifacts of the period deepens the mystery. While contemporary settlements in the region used rudimentary metal tools and occasional ornamental objects, none approached the precision or symbolic complexity of the Dorchester coin. Its sophistication implies knowledge and cultural development that was either uniquely advanced or imported from a source now lost to history. The contrast raises questions not only about the coin's origin, but also about the civilizations that could have produced such an object undetected. Theories about its creation and purpose are as varied as they are speculative. Some scholars suggest the coin may have belonged to an unknown society with a system of trade, governance, or record-keeping that has left no other trace. Others argue it could be the product of an isolated innovation, a one-off artifact created by a master artisan experimenting with metallurgy and symbols. The inscriptions themselves may carry symbolic weight beyond simple identification or monetary function. Some researchers note patterns that suggest an encoded language or numeric system, perhaps intended for record-keeping or ritual significance. Certain symbols recur in a sequence, hinting at rules or grammar, while others appear isolated, possibly marking ownership, authority, or spiritual meaning. This possibility raises questions not only about the coin's practical use, but also about the intellectual and cultural sophistication of its creators, suggesting a level of abstract thinking previously unrecognized in that era. Implications of the Dorchester coin extend beyond the artifact itself. If the coin reflects the presence of advanced metalworking and symbolic systems earlier than documented, it may indicate that current understanding of technological progression is incomplete. Its existence suggests that early societies may have had access to knowledge that vanished without leaving other material evidence. The coin forces reconsideration of the assumptions underpinning historical and archaeological narratives, challenging the linear progression from simple to complex, primitive to advanced. In its small, heavy form, it embodies the possibility of lost human ingenuity. Riddle surrounds the Dorchester coin not only in its manufacture, but in its journey across centuries. How it was preserved, why it survived when other artifacts of its supposed era did not, and what role it played in its original society remain unanswered. Attempts to trace its provenance have relied on historical records, stratigraphy, and metallurgical analysis, yet none yield a complete picture. The coin continues to elude easy classification, leaving researchers to navigate the tension between empirical evidence and historical expectation. Each examination reinforces both its authenticity and its defiance of conventional chronology. Even as the coin rests under glass, studied under magnification and illuminated by careful lighting, it communicates nothing directly. Its inscriptions remain undeciphered, its origin unresolved, and its implications vast. The Dorchester coin stands as a silent witness to knowledge that may have existed long before recognized civilizations emerged, a small object that reshapes the boundaries of what is historically plausible. Standing as a fragment of human skill, the Dorchester coin continues to intrigue, its origin and purpose hidden across time. The Tartaria tablets, the earliest enigmatic script, a whisper from the Neolithic, emerges in the form of 3 small clay tablets, each etched with symbols that defy conventional understanding. Their very existence raises profound questions about the intellectual capabilities of Neolithic societies in the Danube Valley, and about the emergence of symbolic thought long before organized urban centers or documented literacy. Inscribed with a series of enigmatic symbols, the tablets are remarkably well preserved despite their age. Crafted from fine clay and fired to a hardened consistency, the tablets exhibit careful shaping and smoothing, with edges rounded for handling. Each tablet surface is covered in incised markings, some linear, others curvilinear, arranged in sequences that hint at rhythm or structure. The precision of these incisions suggests the use of sharp tools and deliberate effort, indicating a cultural significance that extended beyond mere decoration. Symbols etched into the clay resist immediate interpretation, yet they convey a sense of intentionality that hints at cognitive sophistication. Spirals, lines, and motifs recur across the 3 tablets, sometimes isolated, sometimes grouped in sequences that suggest patterns or repetition akin to syntax. Attempts to correlate these signs with later writing systems have yielded tantalizing yet inconclusive results. The ambiguity of these symbols fuels both fascination and frustration, for they hint at a culture capable of abstract thought yet leave no guide for modern decoding. Contextually, the tablets emerged from a Neolithic settlement near Tartaria in present-day Romania, a region known for advanced farming communities and early ritual practices. Their placement suggests a deliberate creation within a cultural framework capable of recognizing abstract patterns, possibly linked to religious or ceremonial activity. The chronological placement of the tablets, around 5,300 BCE, positions them centuries earlier than the earliest known writing in Mesopotamia, challenging assumptions about the geographic and temporal development of literacy. Interpretations of the tablets have ranged from cautious to speculative. Some researchers argue that the inscriptions represent an early form of record-keeping, tracking commodities, events, or social obligations. Others see in them a ritualistic language, used in ceremonies or as part of initiation practices. A more controversial theory posits that the symbols encode astronomical or calendrical information, though evidence remains circumstantial. The tablets, in their brevity and abstraction, offer glimpses into ideas and practices that cannot be fully reconstructed, leaving modern understanding perpetually incomplete. The significance of the Tartaria tablets extends beyond the clay itself. They force a reconsideration of the timeline of human intellectual development, suggesting that symbolic literacy was not confined to urban centers or early civilizations traditionally credited with writing. The very act of inscribing sequences onto clay implies foresight, abstraction, and communication with others across space and time. The tablets may represent a pivotal moment in the evolution of human thought, where observation, memory, and societal needs converge to produce a tangible expression of abstract concepts. The tablets also raise questions about the preservation and transmission of knowledge. Modern archaeological methods, including 3D scanning and high-resolution photography, have allowed for detailed study, revealing nuances invisible to the naked eye. These technologies have illuminated patterns and sequences, yet they have not resolved the fundamental mystery. What did these symbols signify to those who inscribed them, and how were they used within the social and ritual life of Neolithic communities? Even with careful analysis, the Tartaria tablets remain undeciphered, their meaning suspended between history and conjecture. They speak to a human urge to encode knowledge, yet the audience for that knowledge has vanished, leaving modern observers to infer intent from the marks alone. The tablet's brevity magnifies the challenge. Small in size but vast in implication, they condense centuries of unrecorded thought into mere centimeters of clay. Enduring mystery surrounds the Tartaria tablets as they sit, silent witnesses to a Neolithic intellect reaching across time. Their symbols hint at ideas lost to millennia, a language never recovered, and a civilization whose sophistication appears both familiar and alien. Each line and curve evokes the ingenuity of early humans striving to communicate, to record, or perhaps to connect with forces unseen. In their small, unassuming form, the tablets encapsulate a profound human impulse, to leave a mark on the world that speaks beyond the boundaries of immediate understanding. The Tartaria tablets remain a whisper from a time we can scarcely comprehend, a script that speaks to no one, yet challenges everything we know about the dawn of writing. Saqqara tomb figurines, miniatures of unknown purpose. Amid the sands of Saqqara, small clay and stone figures rest quietly within tombs, their presence nearly imperceptible beneath the weight of millennia. These miniatures, often no larger than a human palm, display a surprising range of shapes and forms. Humans in seated or standing poses, animals both familiar and enigmatic, and objects whose purpose is difficult to ascertain, They appeared deliberately arranged, suggesting intent and careful placement rather than haphazard inclusion. Archaeologists are struck not by the quantity of these figures alone, but by the precision and consistency with which they were crafted. Miniature forms exhibit a level of craftsmanship that suggests deliberate selection of materials and tools. Some are carved from limestone, others molded from clay and fired to endure the passage of time. The surfaces are often smooth, with incised lines defining facial features, limbs, or symbolic marking. Their scale may have made them portable, yet the effort invested in each miniature indicates that their value extended far beyond mere decoration. Patterns and motifs emerge across the collection, though their meaning remains opaque. Some figurines bear marks reminiscent of clothing, jewelry, or insignia. Others depict animals associated with protection, fertility, or the afterlife. Repeated arrangements suggest symbolic pairing, ceremonial function, or even narrative storytelling, but no inscriptions provide clarity. These miniatures hint at a symbolic language encoded in form and posture, a vocabulary lost to time, yet intentionally constructed with a sophistication that implies communal understanding. Within the tombs, the placement of figurines varies from central positions near the sarcophagus to peripheral arrangements along walls and floors. Some are grouped in clusters, as if representing families, retinues, or attendants. Others stand alone, facing inward or outward, suggesting ritual directionality or spiritual orientation. Their presence alongside pottery, amulets, and other grave goods points to an integrated funerary practice, one that incorporated the miniature into a broader symbolic environment. These patterns of placement indicate not merely artistic expression, but deliberate interaction with the spiritual or social framework of the tomb. Scholars propose numerous interpretations of the figurine's function. Some suggest they served as substitutes for human participants in rituals, miniature proxies for servants, guardians, or worshippers, meant to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. Others argue that they may have functioned as talismans, designed to provide protection or favour from the gods. A less conventional theory posits that the figures recorded aspects of daily life or social hierarchy in miniature, a symbolic representation of the living world for eternal preservation. Revelations from comparative analysis highlight both the uniqueness and potential universality of the figurines. Similar miniatures have been found in other Egyptian sites, though rarely with the same consistency of craftsmanship or variety of forms. This suggests that the Saqqara examples may represent either a regional tradition or a high point in symbolic miniaturization, reflecting the ingenuity of the artisans and the sophistication of the funerary culture. The figurines demonstrate a cultural understanding of scale, abstraction, and symbolic communication, hinting at intellectual and ritual practices that extended beyond the visual spectacle of monumental architecture. Each piece is a silent witness to ideas about life, death, and the unseen forces that structured ancient Egyptian society, suggesting a specialized craft. Evidence from surrounding workshops points to artisans who may have devoted their skills to funerary commissions. Traces of molds, unfinished figurines, and discarded clay fragments indicate a controlled production environment where precision and uniformity were valued. Certain stylistic consistencies across multiple tombs hint at shared techniques or school traditions, pointing to a continuity of knowledge that was deliberately preserved. Unanswered questions persist regarding the figurines' production, role, and meaning. Were they commissioned by the tomb's occupant, created by specialized artisans, or both? Did they represent actual people and animals, or are they purely symbolic constructs? Their small scale contrasts sharply with the grandeur of pyramids and tomb walls, yet they convey an intimacy that monumental art rarely captures. The Saqqara tomb figurines endure as quiet witnesses to a culture that spoke in forms smaller than the eye might first perceive. Their purpose remains uncertain, yet their presence conveys deliberate intent, artistic mastery, and ritual significance. Each figure offers a fragment of a story lost to time, a glimpse into the private, symbolic, and spiritual life of a civilization that prized both permanence and intimacy. They defy complete understanding, yet their very survival speaks to a human desire to encode belief, identity, and memory in objects that endure beyond the lives of their makers. Even in their small, unassuming form, the Saqqara figurines suggest a world where meaning was woven into miniature shapes, leaving echoes of intent that survive long after the voices who made them have vanished. The Egyptian schist disc of Sabu, the unknown purpose of precision. Within a First Dynasty tomb at Saqqara, archaeologists uncovered a disc of dark, finely polished schist, its smooth surface reflecting the faint light of their lamps. Unlike the surrounding grave goods, pots, tools, and simple figurines, this disc appeared crafted with deliberate intent towards symmetry and balance, as if it were designed to embody order itself. Its dimensions were modest, only slightly larger than a modern hand, yet the precision of its form suggested skills and knowledge far beyond what is commonly attributed to Egypt's earliest dynasties. Crafted from schist, a material not easily shaped without skillful labor, the disc exhibits edges and surfaces smoothed to near perfection. Its concave and convex curves are subtle but deliberate, giving it a form that is at once simple and exacting. Tiny grooves, imperceptible at first glance, suggest repeated shaping or measurement, implying that its creator worked with careful attention to proportion. The uniformity of the disc's thickness across its diameter, achieved without the tools of modern precision, speaks to a level of craftsmanship almost unimaginable for the period. Every contour of the disc seems intentional, a physical manifestation of knowledge, encoded in stone rather than text. Symmetry and form are immediately striking upon closer examination. The disc's circular perfection defies expectation for an artifact of its age, appearing as though it were measured against a standard now lost to time. Scientific analysis has revealed tolerances in the disc's thickness and curvature that suggest deliberate geometric planning. Scholars have noted that the disc could be rotated on a flat surface without wobble, indicating an understanding of balance and axis. While its exact purpose remains unknown, the precision implies a function beyond mere ornamentation, hinting at either ceremonial significance or technological application that predates known Egyptian engineering achievements. Compared to contemporaneous artifacts, the disc stands apart in both technique and ambition. Nearby pottery and figurines, though artistically competent, display none of the meticulous symmetry or technical refinement evident in the schist disc. Its uniqueness suggests that it may have been intended for a specific individual, ritual, or function, one that required exacting execution rather than decorative approximation. This contrast highlights the ingenuity of early Egyptian craftsmanship and suggests that certain technical capabilities were present far earlier than commonly recognized. Prompting endless speculation, the disc has inspired numerous theories about its intended purpose. Some suggest it functioned as a ritual object, perhaps an emblem of solar symbolism, reflecting the importance of celestial cycles in Egyptian cosmology. Others propose it may have been a tool or component within a mechanical or measurement system, a possibility that challenges conventional assumptions about the technological capabilities of the First Dynasty. Each theory underscores both the sophistication of its creation and the depth of our ignorance, as the object resists categorization within known frameworks of ancient Egyptian culture. Implications emerge from the disc's precision and uniqueness. If its craftsmanship represents deliberate mathematical understanding, it suggests that early Egyptians possessed a conceptual framework for geometry and measurement, not usually credited to this period. The disc could reflect experimental knowledge that was rarely preserved, hinting at a tradition of technical skill that extended beyond the visible record. Its existence challenges assumptions about the linear development of science and craftsmanship, demonstrating that certain innovations may have arisen in isolated or undocumented contexts, leaving only enigmatic traces, such as this schist disc, to suggest their presence. The disc endures not only as an object of stone, but as a symbol of mysteries that elude historical reconstruction. Its form invites speculation about lost knowledge, about practices and skills that modern tools cannot easily replicate. Archaeologists continue to debate its function, testing hypotheses ranging from practical use to ceremonial symbolism, yet each theory only amplifies the questions rather than resolving them. Its quiet presence in a tomb surrounded by ordinary artifacts, emphasizes the contrast between the mundane and the extraordinary, raising the possibility that the ancient world contained depths of understanding still invisible to contemporary scholarship. Even after careful study, the Egyptian schist disk of Sabu remains a testament to a forgotten mastery, a fragment of a culture that could shape stone with a precision that echoes across millennia. It challenges modern assumptions about technological chronology, suggesting that the line between primitive and advanced was far more blurred than historical records indicate. In its perfect curves and meticulous balance, the disk hints at knowledge and intention lost to time, a silent witness to human ingenuity that defies full comprehension. Its purpose may never be known, yet in its precise form lies the haunting suggestion that the First Dynasty held secrets of craft, measurement, and understanding that remain beyond our grasp. The London Crystal Skull Lens, the artifact that sees without eyes. Hidden among antiquities in the collections of a London museum sits a crystal skull, small yet unnerving in its perfection. Unlike typical carvings of its era, this skull is not merely symbolic. It is finely cut, its surfaces smooth to the touch, its contours precise in ways that suggest both intent and skill far beyond conventional tools of the period. Its presence raises questions that linger as sharply as the angles of its carved jaw and the subtle hollows of its eye sockets. Scholars and conservators alike have long been captivated, puzzled by an artifact that appears simultaneously human and mechanical, a miniature object whose design implies functionality rather than mere representation. Carved from crystal, the skull's material is both delicate and demanding, requiring techniques that would challenge even modern artisans. The quartz is transparent, allowing light to pass through in refracted patterns, and yet the cut is flawless, free from fractures or imperfections that often mar such attempts. Minute facets and polished surfaces suggest a meticulous hand, one capable of working with extraordinary patience and a level of precision that modern replication has struggled to match. Every curve of the skull, every indentation, reflects a knowledge of geometry and proportion that seems almost impossible for the period to have produced. Light bends and magnifies as it passes through the crystal, revealing an uncanny optical quality. When examined under magnification, the skull appears to focus light in ways reminiscent of lenses, concentrating rays and producing magnified views of objects placed beneath or behind it. Experiments suggest the crystal could have functioned as a primitive magnifying tool, yet no documentation or analogous artifacts survive to explain how such knowledge was applied. The lens-like properties intensify the mystery, hinting at an understanding of optics that predates historically recorded experimentation by centuries. The effect is subtle, yet undeniable, a delicate manipulation of refraction encoded in a human-shaped form. Unlike other artifacts from the same region and era, the skull does not fit conventional typologies of ceremonial or funerary objects. Its craftsmanship and apparent optical function distinguish it from amulets, votive figures, or ritual carvings commonly found in archaeological contexts. No parallels exist in contemporary sites, and comparative analysis has found no evidence that similar techniques were employed elsewhere in antiquity. The skull occupies an ambiguous position between artistic mastery, scientific curiosity, and spiritual representation, a singular creation that refuses to be neatly classified. Experts speculate on a range of possible purposes. Some suggest the skull may have been intended for ritual or divinatory use, its magnifying properties allowing for symbolic interaction with light or the Sunday. Others propose a more practical application, positing that the skull was part of an experimental understanding of lenses and optical magnification, a proto-scientific artifact predating recognized optics. Another theory frames it as purely symbolic, its form evoking the human head as a vessel of consciousness, wisdom, or mortality, with the optical qualities being incidental or deliberately hidden to enhance mystery. Each hypothesis underscores the tension between technical capability and cultural context, leaving the artifact perpetually on the edge of comprehension. Broader significance emerges from the skull's existence, suggesting that certain ancient cultures may have possessed skills or knowledge far ahead of their recorded history. If the optical properties were intentional, the artifact implies a grasp of refraction and magnification not formally recognized until millennia later. The skull challenges assumptions about the linear development of technology, hinting at isolated instances of sophisticated understanding that leave only enigmatic traces. It exemplifies the potential for lost or undocumented knowledge, a reminder that human ingenuity has occasionally left puzzles in stone and crystal, waiting for interpretation across centuries. The lens remains a silent enigma, its purpose hidden in its flawless symmetry and refracted light. It defies the known historical record, a fragment of skill and vision unattached to surviving documentation or explanation. Modern replication has struggled to achieve the same precision, emphasizing the rarity and possible singularity of the artifact. Observers cannot help but wonder whether the skull's creation was accidental, a byproduct of artistic obsession, or evidence of a deliberately advanced understanding of optics long before history recorded such achievements. In either case, it endures as a delicate intersection of art, science, and mystery, a testament to an intelligence whose full measure may never be known. Its gaze, empty yet somehow aware, continues to challenge the limits of what the past might have understood, leaving questions that no amount of study can fully answer.